Greg Gatchell. I'm a family medicine doctor and also a geriatrician, and most recently board certified in lifestyle medicine and obesity, and also a health coach. I attended a lot of the coaching sessions, the Leverage and Growth conferences, and it was just really inspiring to see what other people were doing and get the support and education to help me get to where I am now. The community is the greatest value, just being in a group of like-minded physicians, but it's also been the conferences have been amazing, and just the coaching and education that's been there.
I was so afraid to talk about my idea to anybody that I was paralyzed. Like, I didn't know what to do. And I think for me, it was literally just this mindset of like, I don't need to solve all the problems right away. I'm just going to get curious and take the next step.
Come to business with the idea of like, I can figure this out. Like, if I can be a doctor, I can also figure this out. Like, there might be a lot of steps that I don't know. Being a physician, I have that kind of confidence of I'll be able to manage this. This is not going to be more complicated than getting through medical school.
Just get started, just start doing some local shows. If you're into art, do it for the fun of it, not for the money. That's what I still do the shows because it's fun to do.
How do I get, some TV exposure? They will find you. Don't be afraid of what you're doing. Have confidence in the work that you're putting out. They will find you.
What we learned in school wasn't just like the medicine, aspect. We learned to problem solve. We learned how to communicate. We don't have all the answers in medicine, but how do we go about in being able to find solutions to patient care? We often are encountered very complex situations, but we figured it out for our patients. And why can't we do the same?
Hey, everyone out there, welcome. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. I can't believe it's day 5. It's our final day of the Leverage and Growth Summit. And what an incredible week it's been. I love all the stories that you've posted on Facebook about your lives. Those intros, they've been amazing. Thank you for showing up and supporting each other. By the way, if you can see this, you can support me by just saying hi below. I want to let you know, in this group, we have authors, we have inventors, business owners, educators, coaches, product developers, speakers, chefs, and bakers. The list goes on and on. I hope I'm not missing anyone. And that is something I love about our annual summit. Thousands of physicians gather in the same place, all carrying unique passions, interests, and skill sets that are ready to light the world on fire with their big ideas. And this is our 5th year, but it's always fun year after year. And I never get bored of it. And I hope you don't as well. By the way, if you found value in being part of this community, I hope you'll seriously consider joining us at the Leverage and Growth Accelerator LGA community. This membership only community is all about supporting each other no matter where you're at in the entrepreneurial journey. And I truly believe there is no other community out there like this, made exclusively for physicians pursuing real estate investing or entrepreneurship, or just trying to figure it all out. Just so you know, it's free to try out, as we've mentioned. So we took the risk out of it because we want people to experience this. Well, on this last day of the summit, we're going to be talking to some amazing physician coaches. Now, why do physicians even need coaches? I know that's a question you might have. Why do all professional athletes have coaches and hire high performance coaches when they're the best in the world at what they do? It's because we can't see everything and they can't see everything about themselves. And it helps to have someone to show you where you're limiting yourself, help you figure out what you really want, figure out why you want it, and help you take the massive action necessary to get there. We all learn from others to get where we're at today. And I'd venture to say that we've learned more from people than we ever did from a book. Anybody who's gone through residency knows what I'm talking about. Well, personally, coaching has played a huge role in my growth over the last 4 to 5 years. And so I wanted to share it with our community, not only through their free coaching sessions that place every day, but also by hearing from some of the most well-respected physician coaches out there. And the cool thing is, they all have their own niches and specialties. These are all incredible people with great stories, and it's a terrific way to end our final day here at the summit. So enjoy, leave comments, engage, connect with others. And by the way, there's still time to join the VIP Q&A sessions. And maybe you're thinking right now, I haven't been able to watch all of the talks yet, and my weekend is going to be so busy. I'm not sure if I can catch up on it all. Well, then this is your opportunity to grab that VIP All Access Pass to secure all the recordings for life and then watch them on your own time. So make sure you do that today because the price goes up after this weekend. Well, that's it, everyone. I will see you later today at 11:45 a.m. Pacific time, which is 2:45 p.m. Eastern time, when I deliver my closing remarks for the summit. I'm going to try to sum it all up for you. Have an awesome day. Enjoy the talks. I'm sure you will. And go ahead and make it happen. Thanks, everyone. Hey everyone, our next guest probably needs no introduction to most of you in this community, but in case it's the first time you're meeting Dr. Sunny Smith, I'm going to go ahead and introduce her anyways. She is a family physician by training, but she's well known to many of you as the CEO and founder of a group called Empowering Women Physicians. I'm going to let her explain exactly what that is, but their impact is far-reaching, and they've helped so many physicians, especially women physicians, in the areas of mindset, building businesses, getting real estate, whatever it might be. She's helped so many people in that area. She continues to make a big impact today in our community. I love talking to her. Sunny, how are you doing?
Great, Peter. It's always so good to see you. I love seeing you. I love coming to talk with your people.
We've done this talk or something similar. We've done it many times before, but every time I talk to you, I feel like I learned something new about you. And of course, there's some great points that you always put in there so I can take away and learn from it. I'm sure everybody will be able to do it as well. Can you just explain, though, what is Empowering Women Physicians?
Yes. So ditto to you. Absolutely. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new, and I'm so glad that I do. And I love and enjoy and appreciate so much having you in my life. So I'll start with that. And Empowering Women Physicians is a life and business coaching program for women physicians that I started in 2018. So now we're coming on 6 years. I started just with life coaching because I found it so meaningful for myself and was able to transform my own life and modify my clinical practice and the different things that I did. So I started coaching one-on-one, as we do, right, when we're starting out. And I started doing retreats, which were really meaningful for me, which were also group. And then I, sort of quickly got very full. So I switched over to more of a program-based sort of coaching style where I bring in many other physician coaches who are all certified through the same places that I have certified. And we do large group coaching, we do small group coaching, we do life coaching. And then as I continued to grow and grow, we became a multi-7-figure business. I was featured in Entrepreneur Magazine and Inc. 5000 and top 1% of female entrepreneurs, et cetera. And so although I was really focused on life coaching and feeling better and living life on your terms and seeing that you have agency, self-efficacy, you really have so much more choice even when you feel trapped. And so we help people see that and start taking action. But then they're like, hey, I kind of like what you do and I want to know, learn about what you do and how you kind of were able to decrease your clinical time and spend more time doing this. So then we also decided that we were willing to support them in entrepreneurship. So we have, of course, supported many, as you know, physicians to build 6- and 7-figure businesses and to be brave enough to go and start some real estate investments, active or passive, et cetera. We just support them on whatever their dreams are. There's no right or wrong way to physician, right? It's a foundation, it's a background, it's a skill set. And whatever you want to do from here forward, nothing is wasted, right? No matter what you're choosing to do, no matter if you're going from 80 hours a week to 60 or from full-time to part-time, or if you're, trained in one type of thing and you kind of modify and do a different specialty. It's like some of my people stop taking call. Some of our people, just modify things somewhat to be more in alignment with this phase of their life, whatever that looks like to them. So for instance, New England Journal of Medicine Career Center contacted me and said, hey, we hear you help physicians kind of pivot and transition in their careers to allow them to sort of align with what's most meaningful to them right now, as opposed to when they were in medical school, right? And we thought, I'll take this job where I'm going to work 80 hours a week. And so then once you're in your 30s and 40s, you're like, okay, how could I, redesign my life a little bit? And so we gave them several examples of people that we have worked with, and it was kind of easy to do so. And they were all different types of examples of ways that people can realign with what's important to them.
I mean, it's so fascinating what you built in a short period of time. Now, you had a very, very different clinical career before building this business. When you were doing that, and maybe we could talk a little bit about what that clinical career looked like, what that academic job looked like. Did you ever think that you'd be a full-fledged entrepreneur, 1%, Forbes, entrepreneur, Inc. 5000? Was that ever part of your consciousness?
0% chance, Peter, 0% chance. Like, I know that you were in the hospital sort of like talking with people, listening in, right? There was no one in my world talking about entrepreneurship. I didn't know any physician entrepreneurs. I was, an academic family physician. I was a medical educator. I was a clinical professor. And my clinical work was in running a free clinic, a student-run free clinic. And that was my full-time clinical work. So I worked in the basement of a church in little toddler chairs. And we started by caring for people affected by homelessness. After the Affordable Care Act, we were able to transfer them out into a Medicaid called Medi-Cal in California program. And then we started dealing with or caring for undocumented immigrants, et cetera. And so I was familiar with the concept since I helped start some of that when I was a first-year medical student. I was familiar with the concept of like having an idea before it was real and taking steps to make it come to fruition, like believing ahead of time that something was possible and everyone would think you were crazy. Like, how could you provide high quality healthcare in the basement of a church? And our outcomes that I published on, for diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, were on par or better than people who were insured or at the VA or, getting care through the other healthcare system. So we did the commonality that I can see now, which I never would have seen then, is that ability to believe in yourself ahead of time, to believe in an idea that is meaningful to you and to take action towards it, and then to be willing to go find funding for it, right? And to make asks for it, and ask for, at that time it was donations. And then as I continued in my medical career, I became a medical student advisor, worked on physician wellness. And then, I decided after an accident, I had to work on my own physician wellness and not be a hypocrite. And sort of that's how I fell more into this in my own personal life. And I think, free clinic to Forbes seems like a huge jump. Yet you could find the common threads, because the common thread is, as I said, believing, and then also meaning and mission, and following your meaning and your mission wherever that takes you at different phases of your life.
I love that. And I love how you put that out into the world. You teach about it. When did exactly coaching come into the picture? You kind of went by it, but I want to dissect that a little more. How did that enter your world?
Yeah. So you asked about entrepreneurship, and that was not what pulled me, to this work. What pulled me to this work is that I was working very hard, as many of us do. I was working every single Wednesday night. I worked late until 8, 9, 10. It was never 8. It was 10 p.m. because our free clinic ran late. And so, and I worked weekends, and I was a director of all kinds of things. And I was always saying yes to all the committees and on the national committees, et cetera. So I was overworking. I loved my work. I was very passionate about it. It was very meaningful. And yet I was not spending as much time at home or with my kid. And my son, who was in preschool at that time, would say things like, "Is today the day you work late?" Every single day. When he would wake up, it'd be the first thing he said to me. So I started realizing and sort of having thoughts like, I'm sort of mid-career and I'm still overworking. So I went on a vacation, finally. I was the kind of person who didn't ever use my vacation days. They would just accrue, and then they would stop accruing because I was so full and not taking them. There's many of us probably like that. Because that's our culture, right? Is to not let people down, and they need us, and who's going to cover. And so what happened is that I got in a bike accident on a vacation in Tahiti. I fell over the handlebars, smashed in my face. It's full of metal. I smashed in my arms, full of metal. I got POTS, position orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, very quickly. So I couldn't sit up even. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't, go to the bathroom. I couldn't shower. I couldn't dress myself, all the things. So life as I knew it came to a screeching halt immediately. And that was it. I was like, okay, who's going to do all the things that I need to do, right? I have so much I have to do. I have grades. I have letters of rec. I have patients to see. I hadn't even finished all my notes, right? Of course. Who's going to take my kid to school? All that stuff. And what I found is the world kept spinning, and I was just upset by my circumstances. And I kept saying to myself, why'd I get on that bike? Why'd I get on the bike? Why'd I get on the bike? I shouldn't have got on the bike. I was arguing with reality, completely wanting a time machine, wanting to rewind and undo it. That is never possible. That is a waste of mental energy. And so someone in Physician Moms Group, which is, a Facebook group started by a dear friend of mine, Hala Sabri, who I love very much. And that is a huge resource for women physicians. I can't imagine my life had that not been a resource for me. So someone said to go listen to a podcast about life coaching. So I did. And my husband would put in my AirPods into my ears, and I couldn't get up. So I would just lay there and listen and listen and listen. And so I listened to hundreds of episodes of this. I started really shifting my perception of this accident. When I couldn't change the circumstances of my life, I realized I could change how I thought about it, how I felt about it. And very much that mindset is everything. It's 80, 90% of the game, right? And so I thought, maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe this is happening for me. Maybe this is so I could reflect on what I really want the rest of my life to look like, or even my career to look like, and not just live by default, doing all the things I'd always done. So then when I went back, I just had the idea I can opt in or opt out of all those things I used to do. And even though it was challenging and hard, I still could sit in the discomfort, right? Because there's this discomfort of continuing to choose the same thing and the discomfort of saying, I'm not going to do this thing anymore. This isn't working for me anymore. And so I just thought if I ever got so lucky to drive a car again and feed myself again and all these things, I was not going to take it for granted. So then I signed up for a coaching program. I decided I wanted to go deeper and train as a coach. And then I wanted to, because I saw my friends and my colleagues, but especially my friends, overworking. And I was like, it doesn't have to be this way, you know? And again, when I was so still in my forced stillness, I would see them rushing all around. I'm like, what are you rushing for? Like, if I ever am able to walk around again, I'm not going to re-choose this. And so I wanted to offer that to other people. The people closest to me, including my family and everyone, they couldn't really see the value in what I was doing. They thought I was crazy. This was a while ago, like before, it was 2017 when I first fell into this. So there wasn't any data on coaching yet, which there is now. And so it just wasn't very widespread as it is more so now. We're still in the infancy, but it's much more common and known now. And so I decided to go and train, and everyone was like doing it on the down low. I didn't really tell people what I was doing. Yet entrepreneurship is necessary if you want to be a coach and actually implement that skill. It'd be like if you were a physician and you had to go put up a shingle because there was no Kaiser or VA or academic medical centers. Like if you wanted to practice, you were going to have to do it on your own, because even though every physician deserves a coach and the data is very clear that it improves overall quality of life, it improves burnout, right? It improves imposter syndrome, all the outcomes that we are looking for. There isn't really the standardization that it is offered now, like health insurance is offered, right? Or like 401ks are offered. They do make investments in physicians and their wellness, but they're in those categories, and CME, et cetera, your healthcare workplace institution. And so we are kind of left out there to figure it out on our own. And so that's what I did. And I just was committed that the day I was certified, I had practiced, volunteered with people. And I was nervous. Is this going to work for other people the way it works for me? And no matter what the person came to me for, one of my first people came with me with $400,000 in medical school debt. She was graduating from residency and trying to decide if she was going to be able to choose the career of her choice or if she was going to have to really do something she didn't want to do. I had somebody who had, a gene that predisposed her to cancer, so she had surgery. I had all these random, unpredictable things that came to me, and I found the coaching tools worked for every single one of these people, and they all felt really better and transformed, and that they had a different perspective and could move forward after just one session. And I was shocked. And so I did that while I was in training. And then when I was certified, I immediately started, and it's been off to the races ever since then. And I learned entrepreneurship you have to learn in the arena, as you know, Peter, because I met you shortly after that, right? I started my business in September 2018, and I met you in March 2019 on Match Day. And we just learned together, right? You have to get messy. You have to get in there. You have to fall on your face. You have to pay a Facebook ads person who's going to mess up everything. And you're going to wish that you hadn't done that. But that's how you learn. Just like if you learn to intubate, or if you learn, to do an LP, or if you learn any kind of surgery or procedure, you have to learn by doing. There's no other way with entrepreneurship. And the more mistakes you make, the more confident you are because you have learned from those mistakes, right? Like if I delivered babies as an example, and if I had not seen people with postpartum hemorrhage, right, or any complications, I wouldn't be confident when I was presented with something. And so I think people early in entrepreneurship think something's going wrong if they don't get it right and perfect every time, because we're physicians and we're used to getting it perfect, right? We're used to getting the A+. We've been rewarded, externally validated with our gold stars. And we're like, you want us to jump? How high, right? You want an antibiotic? We'll get the right one. You're going to give me step 1. I'm going to ace it. And in entrepreneurship, it's really, as you know very well, the willingness to mess it up and be perfectly imperfect and just keep proceeding anyway and knowing you're either winning or learning, and that's it. And so I was willing to fail fast, right? Like I was telling myself, like, this is very meaningful, it's very purposeful, and I have a lot on the line, because I like would sign big contracts for retreats, and I'm like, we're gonna fail this because I am not gonna pay for this out of my family's money. Like, that is not okay with me. So I'm going to figure this out. And you can, right? It's not easy. And I want to make sure that everybody who's watching your summit knows that entrepreneurship is not like medical school in the guarantee. 99% of people who get into medical school, because I was a medical school advisor, will come out the other side and will get a multiple 6-figure job for the rest of their lives, and they'll retire millionaires, multimillionaires, right? That's the medical school path. That is not the entrepreneur path, right? And the people that you have in this summit are going to be the people who succeeded. So listen to their words, right? Their words, their beliefs influence their action. They have all this wisdom. Listen to them and realize most entrepreneurs in most businesses in all industries don't make it. So you have to ask yourself, am I willing to stick with it when it's hard? Am I willing to stick with it when it's not working, right? And that doesn't matter if you're like real estate, you have a portfolio, some of them are not going to work. Whether you open a bakery, you know, it could go upside down. If you're going to be online, whatever the things are, if you're going to do private practice, it's going to not be in the black for a while. Like, people need VC for a lot of companies, and they need huge investments for a lot of things to even eventually hope to get in the black. So anyway, that was kind of a diatribe about my journey into entrepreneurship, which was driven by meaning, passion, purpose, coaching, agency, self-efficacy, learning and looking at the culture that we have been indoctrinated in medicine, the medical culture of self-sacrifice. Like, those are just a bunch of belief systems. And we don't have to keep opting in and subscribing and following all of those belief systems. And the Surgeon General of California had said, like, workplace flexibility is now essential, right, to the well-being of workers, especially after COVID, because now we know we can work remotely and we don't have to do things the way we always did. And so I think physicians insisting on workplace flexibility and reminding systems that we are human first and everything else has to come second. I think that's where medicine has to go. And the things that you teach, including entrepreneurship, including things that give you cash flow, including things that give you financial freedom, give you the options to do your meaningful work on your terms.
First of all, amazing story. I know people go, come on. I mean, come on. I mean, that's a master class right there and all of it. I already got so much inspiration from there. I have to ask though, because you started this whole side of, this business of coaching, you started figuring it out. You still got this clinical side. What did you decide to do with that? How did you decide, to balance that? And at what point, where was most of your energy, your priority, and how did that transition happen for you?
That is a really great question as well, because again, most people who are going to be watching this are clinicians, right? Or possibly full-time, possibly part-time, possibly looking at what they're going to be doing, but probably have some clinical background in their foot in the clinical world. So I was 1.0, right? Which for me really meant like 60 hours a week, right? As it does for many people. And so I was doing this we had Saturday mornings. I would reserve a babysitter. My husband would go play volleyball. And I did this on Saturday mornings, and I did it, on occasion on evenings, which actually worked really well for physicians because they all have daytime jobs. And so they were my clients. So I could do evening after I got home from work, I could do Saturday mornings. And as my coaching panel grew, I needed to make more space for it. And also that happened to be I ran a free clinic. And so there was a lot of grants and a lot of donations that we ran off of. And so when Trump came into power, his, the HRSA grants, they're called HRSA grants, that were huge grants that would fund our clinic so that we could stay open 5 days a week, were no longer available for the types of patients that I was seeing. As I mentioned, I was seeing largely undocumented immigrants at that time. And so since our funding was cut, we kind of had to take a hard look and say, okay, we're going to have to close our clinic some of these days per week because we don't have enough to keep it open. And so with the growth of my company and the decrease in funding, it was kind of easy for me to say, okay, well, I'm going to go 0.8 because that takes pressure off of the clinic. It allows me to grow my business. And then the business kept growing. So I went to 0.6. And then the business kept growing even more. So I went to 0.17, which was mainly just keeping the academic community advisor and the classroom teaching, but starting to let go of my clinical role and my director roles. And then September 2020, like you can imagine, as I was letting go of the clinical things in 2020, and then the new school year was coming around, and you have to choose if you're going to come and do the white coat ceremony and, have the parents meet you as the advisor, et cetera. And it sort of became clear to me after I had been working at home all this time and doing really meaningful work, because supporting physicians during the beginning of the pandemic was very impactful, very meaningful, lots of tears, lots of helping people find the sort of the ground under their feet again. We measured outcomes at that time, and we were being incredibly effective for burnout and support and professional fulfillment being refound, et cetera. So I decided I wasn't going to go back in person, and I wasn't going to go back to the advising of medical students, because there's so many reasons, but one thing is, and I love all my medical students I ever had. Some of them have now been in my program. Some of them will be watching this, there's thousands of them because I was doing it so long, and they're really just incredible human beings. Yet, I would, do part of the admissions, bring them into medical school, and it's 4 years later till they're a physician, 7 years later minimum until they're practicing. And then we kind of throw them to the wolves, no matter how much I was protecting them and teaching them. And so any kind of change I wanted to make felt like it was years and years and years away. Whereas in 2020, I was exposed to people who were really in distress on the front lines. And within 8 weeks, we could make a huge difference in their lives. So, and they were at my sort of stage of life. So the meaning and purpose kind of transitioned for me into that. And then also I was, not of retirement age, but I went, I met you. I didn't know anything about physician finances. When I met you, I'm like, oh, that's a nice guy, but like, I'm so not interested in the kinds of topics he's, teaching about. Like, I'm not interested in entrepreneurship or passive income or real estate or what. That was just never on my radar, never my jam. And, but then I saw that what you taught allowed us to do what I was trying to do, which is live life on my terms, more on my terms. And so, we were at a place in Amsterdam together at a conference, and, you and others and the speakers had recommended to sort of see a financial planner and see where you are. And so I did that. And I realized, because as an academic primary care medical educator, free clinic person, I thought, I'd been really low paid my entire career. And so I didn't think I had a lot of freedom or options in these various ways. And in fact, I was a little bit panicked when I had to go to 0.8 because I had a lot of financial obligations. And as many people watching this would be, if you go to 0.8, it can be really scary, right? With the income you're used to, is it really going to be okay? And then when I went to 0.6, like, is this really going to be okay? And then I talked to someone, and I would encourage everyone here to actually do that, to speak to a professional, to look at your real numbers, because a lot of us are farther along than we thought, whether it's we own a home, we have a little 401k, the compounding interest over time. And I realized after speaking with them, it was very freeing, because I thought I really can do what I want with my life. if I could do anything I wanted with my life, what would I choose? And so I remember texting you in our group text and saying, I really get to choose what I want to do with my time now. So how would I choose to spend my time if money wasn't the issue, right? If I didn't have to work till I was 65, because that's what we all think. We're like sold this bill of goods that we're supposed to work until we're 65 and then we retire. And it's like, if you really look at your expenses and your income, and, at that time, my biggest expense was, maybe a couple of trips every once in a while that I felt I was being excessive on. And daycare was ending, preschool was ending because my kid was going to kindergarten. So a lot of my expenses were decreasing. And I was just like, oh, I really can find what's most meaningful, what's most purposeful, and start doing that right now and not wait until I'm in my 50s or 60s. And some of my friends, colleagues, advisors were like, why don't you stay for the pension? I can't believe you're going to leave without the pension. What are you doing? The University of California has a great pension. And I was like, I'm just not willing to trade my life for that anymore. Right. And I hadn't even realized I had been trading it for sort of that, I don't know, there was the Industrial Revolution, and then there was, during wars, people provided healthcare. And then there was, as things moved on, we'll give you these pensions. And it's just sort of became the culture, and it's normalized for everybody. This is what we do. And anyone watching this probably knows you don't have to do that, and you can start pivoting at any age that you want to. So long answer to your questions always, Peter, but that's sort of how things evolve for me.
I mean, how do you spend your time today, and how does that make you feel now that you've undergone this transformation? I'd love to know what kind of impact it's made on you now personally.
How do I spend my days? I mean, I moved from San Diego, which is incredibly beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful place to be, and I loved being there, and I thought I would stay there forever. And we, during the pandemic, when we could work from anywhere, moved to Puerto Rico. I live on a beach that is beautiful 365 days a year. Yes, we get rain because it's tropical, but it's really incredibly beautiful. I get to drop off my kid at school every single day. I pick him up every single day. Today was robotics day, so it was an hour and a half later, but I'm like, who cares, right? I mean, I get to choose which parts of my life I want to do, and I fit my, calls and meetings and schedules around that. I was just talking with you about how I just visited this private island nearby, and I met a female entrepreneur who is amazing and mission driven, and again, bought this private island to help facilitate healing and fund missions around the world. And so like the types of people that I get to meet and the types of things I get to do, I just scheduled my call with her like in between picking up my kid, and I schedule my call with you after picking up my kid. And I manage my team. I have a staff. We have to, I don't want to like romanticize all of it. We have to deal with profit and loss statements. We have accountants, we have lawyers, as you grow your team, you have meetings you have to attend. You don't run a multi-million-dollar business all by yourself. And so I think people can be naive to that. These are real companies, right? And we have real payrolls and we have real responsibilities and tasks, but they're of our choice. And so those ones that I don't want, I get to delegate, hire out, fail, do it again, fail, until I find the person that fits my personality and my company and my culture, because I am the steward of the culture of my company, right? And when I bring in someone that tries to overwork me or put me in a box, it doesn't work. And so we continually evolve. So my days are variable and beautiful and flexible, sometimes frustrating because life is still life, but I have to say I'm like forever grateful. It's exceeded any of my wildest expectations. Like as a little girl, I never would have dreamed this would be my life. And even as a coach, I never would have dreamed this would be my life. And even as a budding entrepreneur, I would never have dreamed this was my life, because even just a couple of weeks ago, I submitted my paperwork for the second year in a row to be on Inc. 5000, fastest growing companies. And who would ever think that someone who just wanted to feel better and so went into coaching and then started doing some one-on-one with someone else would be featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, or would be looking at their outcomes academically. I mean, I could have predicted that I would look at my outcomes academically, because that's what I did in a free clinic and in medical education. But to find that our program, was the most impactful, effective physician wellness program just by talking to people on Zoom, it's crazy, because people want to find community and they want to find people who get them and people who are like-minded. And when you do that, it matters. People feel seen, they feel heard, right? As opposed to like if you're sitting next to somebody who's just like typing on their keyboard, doing their notes and frustrated and just wants to quit. You're like, well, where do I find my people? And so that it's been really, really meaningful, as I'm sure you have found exactly the same. And your people want to find community. We found each other, which is community. And yeah, it's just, you cannot predict where your business is going to end up. You can't. You can guess, you can aim, and then it goes wherever it goes. It's like if you have a child, as for instance, you have all these ideas before you have the child of what's going to happen, and then there's what really happens, right? And it kind of, things take on a life of their own.
I mean, it's again a fantastic journey. It's again, we could talk for hours, I'm sure. I know that some people are going to hear this and they're going to want to find out more about you if they don't know you already, and find out more about what you're doing and all the important work that you do. Where's a great place for people to do that?
They can go to empoweringwomenphysicians.com. We have free resources there, like the guide that talks about how we do our coaching. We have references, right, that talks through the data, because skeptics might think we are a cult, or that, I have a lot of limiting beliefs or concerns. And so we really do offer links to the randomized controlled trials that are in JAMA, that are by the leading physician wellness experts, et cetera. So they can find all that on my website. And if they are a woman physician, they can be in my Facebook group, which is where I am every single day. But they have to be a woman physician. And so if they are not, they can also find my public podcast. We do a lot of private podcasting. But again, that's for people like in our community. And so the public podcast is a place that people can find us too.
So great. I mean, you've already given us so much information, so much knowledge. Obviously, your time is valuable, but we want to make sure you leave people with at least one big tip, one more, for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps, build a business, make an impact, any of those things. What's a great piece of advice you have for them?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so many of them are things that I think I would already have said, which is like, be willing to fail. Don't make it mean anything when you fail. I would say also, you are not your business. You are not your offer, right? So if your business is struggling at all, that doesn't mean that you're not worthy, right? I have multiple businesses now, and none of them are me. I am a human being. And then I guess lastly, I would say you'll see a lot, like for instance, in this summit, you'll see a lot of different people and paths. You will see people selling you, this is the way to do it. This is the only way to do it. And the reason they say that is because that's what they're selling, right? Like if someone tells you you need an email list, is because they sell you something about how to make an email list. If someone tells you you need to have an Instagram account and you could do it all for free on social, that's because that's how they did it. And they probably have something to sell you with that. Right? So if someone is telling you there is one way and it's their way, it probably has to do with their personality, how their brain works. It's what they did to succeed. However, your path is going to be unique and individual. And how do you find it? I think it's super important to lean in to what lights you up. Uniquely, like I was always into wellness. I was always doing professional development. I was always advising people. I was always talking with people. I was always reflecting with people. And so this came easy to me to talk, right? I could sit and talk to you all day. I do sit and talk to people all day. And that's actually my job right now. And so I leaned into what I loved. And if people are going against the grain, it's going to be so much harder, right? It's harder to like chop wood against the grain. You got to go with the grain and it splits right open. And so whoever we are, however we like showing up in the world, whatever those traits are about ourselves, like this weekend, we're doing Enneagram for my people, and then we're going to do the Kolbe for my people. It's just like there are certain characteristics about you that are your strengths. Lean into your strengths. Get to know yourself. Entrepreneurship is a personal development journey on steroids because you're doing it in front of the world. Right. And so it makes you confront all of your issues. So that was a lot of things to leave people with. But I would say that last one is probably the most important, is like, do it your way. And the only way to find the path is by you find the path as you walk it.
I love it. Sunny, always great talking to you. Obviously made a huge impact in the physician community in general, but also within this community. So I have to thank you for that. I know people are going to get a ton out of this. Definitely check out Sunny's group and what she's doing if you are interested in any way. But either way, just again, really just proud of you in terms of what you've built. Congrats on all your success, and look forward to seeing where it goes from here. So always great talking to you. Let's do it again soon.
Ditto. Thank you, Peter Kim. Goodbye.
Okay, bye. Hey everyone, this is going to be a fun talk. This is somebody that I always love talking to. She's an inspiration. She's a physician and entrepreneur, and she does a lot of cool things. She's well known to many of you. I'm going to be talking to Dr. Bonnie Koo. She's a board certified dermatologist. She's a master certified life coach and the founder of a company called Wealthy Mom MD. Many of you know her as a money coach for physicians. She's also the host of the Wealthy Mom MD podcast and the author of a book called Defining Wealth for Women: Peace, Purpose, and Plenty of Cash. She lives on the East Coast and currently in New Jersey. I'm excited to talk to her today. Bonnie, how are you doing?
Hey, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I love talking to you because every year I talk to you. We do this summit a lot. You show up in different places in our community. You always got something new going on. We'll talk about all those things today. But for those of people who aren't familiar with who you are and what you do you mind just sharing today, what is Wealthy Mom MD? We'll go into your past, but what is Wealthy Mom MD today, and what is your goal and purpose with that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. What is it today? Well, I'm still a money coach for women physicians, and I started off, with a course, but now it's changed. Now I'm offering a conference. By the time this comes out, it's the same year. So the first money and wellness conference for women physicians. I felt like there's been a need for a long time. I was kind of hoping someone else would do it. But then at some point, you're just like, you know what? It's me.
I love that. So tell us a little bit more about what the goal of this conference is. I mean, obviously it's for women physicians, but what are you talking about when it comes to money? What does that mean?
Yeah, so my goal with this, so it's money and wellness, is to obviously educate female physicians, but also provide that community and in-person experience. As I'm sure people crave the in-person experience. I would say physicians in general, like they tend to be lonely because we get so busy with our jobs and you have a family. So I think a lot of women find themselves like, wait a minute, I don't have anyone to talk to, especially about money, right? And so to have this conference where like that's what we're talking about is huge. And they get to learn, I've curated topics that I think that I felt are useful. And then the wellness portion is, okay, let's get your money in order, but also let's make life better at work and outside of work. And so I brought in topics like, how to get your charts done, because that's a huge pain point among physicians, as you know. Like that's huge. I think that's going to be huge because I think a lot of women doctors feel like I've tried everything, there's nothing I can do, and I'm like doomed to do this the rest of my life. And that is just not true.
I mean, it's just funny how this is where you've become now. You take your expertise, you bring together a lot of really cool people, you curate a lot of information and bring it to people. Now, was this something that you've always done growing up? Is this something that you were doing all throughout medical school? Something that was part of your purpose and plan from the beginning?
I've been throwing conferences since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
No, it's funny that you asked that question, Peter. I've always been someone who organized groups. Like when I was younger, I loved hosting dinner parties, to have people and have conversation, obviously to cook because I love cooking. And actually, during medical school, I was kind of the social director, if that makes sense. Like I would plan outings and things like that. So I guess it's always been natural for me to kind of be the host, if that makes sense.
Hmm. I mean, so how did you translate that though? And when did that become, again, people know you as a money coach for physicians. Like when did that whole transition happen? Because you were a dermatologist. I know you were, again, busy building all that part of your life and that career. When did all this transition start to happen?
Do you mean transition to a business?
Yeah, to a business and being a money coach. Like how does that even, those two things even come together? For a lot of people, that might seem like crazy to think that, again, for a physician is a physician, but how do you go ahead and build that practice? And when did that all start?
Yeah. I think with all entrepreneurs is we see a problem and then we want to help solve it. So that's basically what happened is I found myself basically at least I was interested in learning money, but I was like, who's doing this? Where can I learn? And you Google money and like 30,000 things come up. And then it was clear to me that it wasn't just me. No one had a clue. Like just because you make a lot of money does not mean you know anything about money. You know what I mean? That's one thing I learned. And when I tell people that, they're like, oh, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I should know money, or as if like making more money suddenly implants this like brain chip of money, right? That's just not true. And so I found this gap and then I just started helping people. People would be like, hey, Bonnie, can you explain this? Hey, Bonnie, can you explain this? And I realized I had a lot of knowledge about something that a lot of people didn't know. So that's kind of how it happened. I didn't wake up one day saying I should start a business and be a money coach. It just kind of happened piecemeal. And then, I started speaking. People asked me to speak to their residents or their group. They're like, hey, can you teach us about money? And it kind of went from there.
I mean, you have this career as dermatologist. Why even do all these other things on top of that? You're already busy enough as is. Why even
Mhm.
venture into some of this stuff? And then when did it actually start becoming a business for you?
Yeah. It was kind of a hobby at first. I was like, oh, this is fun, going to, conferences where I met you, financial blogger. I'm like, it just was fun to be a part of this community. And still I wasn't quite sure. Like to me, it was like a jobby. It's like, oh, it's a hobby and it makes some cute money. But then I was working with a coach we both know, Sunny Smith. And then, I just made a decision to like go for it. And I wasn't thinking quitting my job and doing this. I was like, let me actually grow this as a business, meaning make money, because that's what a business does. And then the decision to stop was also not intentional. Basically, COVID happened. I had switched to locums, and that locums job finished the end of February 2020. So it kind of was like I had no choice, right? I entered the job. I was interviewing for jobs locally, and then everyone stopped hiring because of the pandemic. And then, a week became months. No one knew what was happening, et cetera. And then I had no desire to go back. Is really what happened. And my business was making enough money.
I mean, how did you pick up those skills to be able to learn to grow a business like that? I mean, and what did the business look like initially? Like, I'm sure people
Mhm.
are curious, like, how do you even make money as a money coach? Like, what did that even look like? And then again,
Yeah.
how did you know, like, where did you get the skills and the resources to learn how to do that?
Same thing I said before. Just because you start a business doesn't mean you like all of a sudden know business. Like I took courses. I was like, I need to learn how to do this. There's people who know more than me, so I'm going to learn from them. So I literally took courses on how to run an online business, how to think about it, marketing and selling. I don't think I realized how much marketing and selling was involved. That's something I find that people have a hard time kind of grabbing onto because we're just not used to that as physicians. And Amy Porterfield, she's all about courses. Like you can sell a course. And even other people are like, you can make a course. I was like, okay, I can make a course. So that's how I made money initially. Well, I had some sponsorships and speaking, but in terms of significant money, it wasn't until I created an online course.
Hmm. I mean, again, Did you feel like that was something that you'd be successful at initially, or did you have some maybe inner challenges with that? Because I know there's a lot of people who are thinking, okay, I have an expertise or I want to start these businesses, but there's always like something that they hit up against, like a wall, where maybe I don't know if it's fear or whatever that might be. Did you
Mhm.
fall? Did you run into that as well as you were starting some of these things that you were starting?
I don't think I really had fear. So one thing that I've learned that I really recommend is like, it's easy to kind of have this outline and, spend so much time, videoing and preparing. So I did something called pre-sell, which means you sell the program before you actually make it. You have to know what the course is about. You can't just be like, hey, I'm creating a course. Do you want to buy? Like, no one's going to buy. So I did create a curriculum. I had thought about it and I sold it before I made it. And I think that's a great idea for first timers. And like, you can literally teach it live. Like, and then that helps you figure out what worked, what didn't work. And then you can eventually record it if you want. But one thing I've learned, Peter, is I think doctors were like we're such perfectionists. We're like, it has to be perfect. I need to like plan everything and doing in advance. And I was like, what I've learned this year is like, or you can just teach it live.
I mean, you're high income. You're on the road. You're in one of those high income specialties when it comes to medicine. I'm sure people are thinking, why not just do dermatology? Like, why even do these other things? Did you ever come across that? Like, I could be practicing or I could be doing these things. Like, why even do that?
That's a good question, especially since our lifestyle is pretty good for dermatology.
Yeah.
I think once you taste the type of freedom and flexibility being your own boss brings, it's like you can't go back to like being told when to show up, when you go to work, when you go home, asking for vacation time. Like once you've experienced not having to do that, like entrepreneurship is hard. It's not like I sit around doing nothing. Like I work hard. But having that freedom and flexibility, I just was like, there's no way I'm going back to being an employee. And then I developed this entrepreneur mindset, and it's really hard to go back to employee once you become that, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think that that's probably where a lot of people go back and forth on is that, they have high paying specialties, they're a physician, then they could go into this other thing and start a business, but they may not get paid as much initially. They may, but where's the payoff for them? And I think you really articulated that really well for those people. I mean, what were some of the skills that you think that, being a physician, you brought into some of this business, into your business that really allowed you to be successful in doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think this is a really great question because a lot of doctors are like, well, I don't have any skills besides medicine. And that's just simply not true. Like, I think two things that we have going for us are really important. Number one is we can learn quickly and we can learn complicated things. Like, we're hard, like topics we can master, right? We mastered medicine, which is way harder than learning money, by the way. And then also, we're hard workers, we have discipline. We committed to being a doctor. We committed like a decade over our life. Like it's not going to take you a decade to learn entrepreneurship. It's much, quicker than that. And so I think just knowing that, and then yeah, there is work to do. You have to learn and you have to try things, you have to be willing to fail. Like doctors don't like that. So there are some traits of doctors that make it harder to be an entrepreneur, but they're not insurmountable.
Hmm. And what are some of the big challenges? Because again, I'm sure there have been some challenges for you along the way, some of the obstacles that you've had to get over that maybe you could talk about, you could share with people that are thinking about doing something similar.
There's a lot. It's like, which one do I pick? This isn't to, scare anybody, but I think it's important to talk about what the obstacles are. I mean, the simplest thing is people may not buy and you might not make money. I don't recommend that people quit their job and go all into the business. Like the great thing about being a physician, Peter, is that we do make a high income. We're able to work on this on the side while we're still making a great income. And that's huge, right? Because you'll meet entrepreneurs who had to get really strappy because they didn't have enough money. Like, I'm very privileged that I had money to like pay for courses so I can learn, you know? So in terms of like actual obstacles, like a lot of it's just like mind stuff, right? It's like the fear of failure, putting yourself out there, marketing and selling. Like selling felt really awkward. Like I hated selling initially. You're basically like, buy my thing, right? That's basically what you're doing. And that's just really uncomfortable. Now I'm over it. Now it's like easy for me, but definitely wasn't in the beginning. And I think, dealing with setbacks, because there are a lot of setbacks in entrepreneurship, it's kind of like this, whereas medicine, once you're in attending, it's just kind of, hopefully you get raises. But it's like, you know, kind of, it's like you go to work, you make money. Like it's very, you know what's going to happen. There's a paycheck always there. There's no guaranteed paycheck in entrepreneurship, and it's definitely up and down. And so I think it's important to understand that. But here's what I'll say, not because I'm like, everyone's like, well, this sounds like a horrible idea. One thing I noticed about physicians, and including myself, is after you're in practice for a few years, it's easy to get bored and stagnant. You know, for the decade you're training, you're like learning and learning and growing, and it's exciting. And then you practice, and then, you know, unless I guess you're in academics or something, you get bored. It's like the same thing over and over again. And entrepreneurship, I think, really feeds that desire to grow, right? Because it's like entrepreneurship is never stagnant. You're always learning something, you're always pivoting, you're always thinking. And I've definitely heard that a lot from doctors, like, I'm bored.
I mean, what does your life look like now then? I mean, in terms of like spending your time with your business. Again, I think you mentioned where you are with medicine today, but if you can reiterate that with family and all of this stuff, and how do you put all that together?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have a schedule. You know, it's Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, depending on what's going on. And but what's nice is, you know, if my son is sick and I have to pick him up, I can do that. You know, I might have to reschedule a few meetings, but it's not like we're scheduling patients, right? I don't have to ask for time off for vacations, you know. So like whenever my son has vacation, like we just go somewhere. We usually go on some kind of trip. Um, you know, I'd taken such a long time off from medicine. And so at some point I had to make a decision like, am I going to practice again? Am I going to keep my board certification? I think these are hard questions for doctors. Like, we work so hard for this. Do we just let it go? And what I've decided now is I want to keep up my skills. I want to keep that ability always open for my family. Because again, entrepreneurship is up and down. It's not guaranteed. And I just feel like, why would I give up that ability to make money? You know, if for some reason my business exploded. And so I've actually recently taken steps to renew my medical licenses. And then I was like, well, how can I practice that doesn't interfere with the life that I've created, the lifestyle? And to me, I found the perfect fit. Basically, it's staffing resident clinics. You know, like I have these residents, they're fun, you know, because the teachers, you know, they're so bright, you know, and they're learning, and I love hanging out with them. I love teaching them. And it's the best part is they do all the work and I just sign the notes.
Yeah,
I mean, it's beautiful.
You're sharing your expertise too. So it's not just that, but it's a way for you to still stay sharp. That's awesome. I mean, do you ever feel like your outlook on medicine has now changed, having gone the entrepreneurial route? I mean, you talked a little bit about boredom for some people. Some people have talked about burnout and things like that. Having the business and doing all that, again, how does it change your outlook on medicine overall?
Yeah. I don't know if it's so much my outlook. I think also from the outside, I can so clearly see the problems, and I think it's a tragedy seeing doctors who've worked so hard, who have such good hearts, and, you know, medicine is very different now. And so I feel, you know, very fulfilled helping people figure out money so that I don't want people to ever feel trapped because of money. Like, I want to do this, but I can't because of money. I want to go part-time, or I want to take a break, but I can't because of money. And people are stuck in these awful jobs. I'm sure you hear all the time, like, you know, their work environment sucks. And, you know, it's like, what if we could set things up so that you could just leave and find another job? That's always a choice, though, you know, to leave and find another job. And, you know, let's get your money handled so that you don't have to work till you're 70 years old. I think a lot of people realize, like, I'm going to have to work till I'm 70, and I don't know if I can do that, you know? And these are younger doctors saying that, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think a lot of people just don't know what's possible for them, and you're somebody who helps unlock a lot of that. I mean, again, just coming from your experience and working with so many people, what do you think is the potential for the doctors to leverage what they have, their skills, their resources right now to build and try new things and start businesses? You've talked a little bit about that, but just to share it for everybody, like, again, what is potential for any physician listening to this to be able to do that?
Well, I think all the people you're interviewing, they're going to see so many different types of people. And I think what I hear a lot is like, someone just messaged me today. They're like, I know I don't want to do medicine, but I have no idea what I want to do. And honestly, I'm going to tell them to watch your summit, because even if they don't know what to do, they're going to hear all these ideas And just hearing these people talk, like your mind just kind of starts turning. And usually people they might not know exactly what they want to do, but I think, I'm trying to see how to explain it exactly. I think what doctors are great at is like we're really great at noticing a problem and we naturally want some kind of solution. And what I see with a lot of, I think there's so much potential for entrepreneurship in medicine. Like we have this specialized knowledge and lay people are creating courses around medical stuff. Like, there's people teaching sleep, how to put your kid to sleep. Like a pediatrician should do that. You know what I mean? Like they could totally incorporate that in part of their practice. Most doctors I meet don't want to quit medicine. They want to make it more palatable. They don't they're tired of seeing 30 patients a day, but they love talking about these topics. Now, I talk about pediatricians because they're supposed to see a kid, but then it ends up being like a parent coaching session and XYZ. And part of me is like, that is a great service. Parents would love it. I always tell them all the time, like, you need to start a course. You need to create some kind of like coaching thing. And some of them end up doing it. Now that's just pediatrics, but there's opportunities like that in every specialty to still use your physician brain to help people, but in a way where you're not like their medical doctor. There's only so much you can do in a short visit,
I know that people are going to hear this. You're going to inspire them in some way. Something you said is going to resonate with them. They're going to want to reach out to you, find out more. Where's a great place for people to do that?
Yeah, the best way is Instagram, and my handle is Wealthy Mom MD. That's my website as well, but I would say Instagram's the easiest way to get in contact.
Gotcha. We also got your website there, Wealthy Mom MD, if anybody wants to reach out to you.com. Before we leave, though, you already shared so much information, so much knowledge. Do you mind leaving people with one big tip for someone who wants to follow?
Like, go to a conference. And you just like ideas just start, like businesses are born at these types of conferences, So I think
Leia Famolarcano, and I am a trained family medicine physician, and I am also board certified as obesity medicine physician. It was through my husband's cousin that I heard about Leverage and Growth through the community. There are physician coaches that comes through, the speakers. Don't think twice about joining. If you're thinking about it, just go for it, and you will experience the support that I have. And who knows, who will you be 1 year from now, 2 years from now? I transitioned from a burned out physician to a thriving physician who stayed in medicine, identifies as investor, and I am also now actually a life coach. And so, like so many things that has happened just because I joined this community. So I have been truly blessed with that.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to talk to the one and only Dr. Jimmy Turner. He's a practicing academic anesthesiologist. I'm going to go ahead and read his bio. I know Jimmy as a serial entrepreneur, from a solopreneur, as a blogger, podcaster, online course creator, and coach. He's done so many things. To his time as a co-founder, CMO of a venture capital-backed startup. I think Jimmy's done a little bit of everything, honestly. While creating enough financial freedom through these endeavors to practice anesthesia only a couple days a week. He currently hosts the Money Meets Medicine podcast and the Money Meets Medicine YouTube channel, where he provides free personal finance content for doctors. Now, he's also the author of a book called The Physician Philosopher's Guide to Personal Finance, and Determined, that's another book, How Burned Out Doctors Can Thrive in a Broken Medical System. You should definitely check out these books if you haven't already. I'm excited to talk to Jimmy. Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm great, Peter. So good to be here, and excited to do this again. I want to say it's like the 4th or 5th year we've done this, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of it every year. So I must be not doing terribly at these things. But yeah, man, good to see you.
If people can see you right now, I joke about it with Jimmy. Every time we do this, he has a different background. He has something cool in the background there. Money Meets Medicine. If you can't see this, you're listening to this, he's got this really cool light up plaque back there. So Jimmy, let's just catch up on how you're doing today. I know you have so many things going on. Every time I talk to you, in every single one of these interviews, you've tried something new and been on a different path and journey. It's really cool to hear about. Where are you today? Well, tell me a little bit more about Money Meets Medicine, that podcast, and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, Money Meets Medicine's been a fun journey. We've done it for a few years, had, a few different iterations. And so, originally back in the day, it was with Ryan Inman, a good friend of mine, financial planner. And so Money was meeting medicine, and then kind of took a pivot to, having Dr. Alicia Taylor, amazing person. And, another physician kind of perspective, while she was in training, and now she's transitioned out of that. And then, we're going to be bringing back on another financial planner to have that kind of perspective that we had in the beginning. And so as people are listening to this now, that's already kind of taken place. And so super excited about that. But yeah, it's been a journey. I think that you kind of hit it on the nail in terms of, I'm an example of how to pivot, and I've done it quite frequently, and with some success. So, it's been a fun ride, but definitely anything but linear.
Not everyone knows your story, but how did this all start? Because you're practicing academic anesthesiologist. If I have it right, that was kind of your plan all along. When did all of this happen in terms of starting to pivot towards all of these different companies and businesses, and even thinking about entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So, in 2017, graduated from fellowship, and, as part of that, I was just learning about personal finance, really kind of diving into the books, some of the podcasts that were out there, although there weren't a ton back then, and really learning about it. And as I did that, I'm an educator at heart. It's what I love to do. You just mentioned kind of some of the financial literacy things we're going to be putting out this year. Super excited to put out tons of free content on that. But the reason why is because I love teaching people. I've always loved making complicated things simple. And so as I was learning, my residents, my students, early career faculty that were colleagues of mine started asking me about personal finance. And as they did, I started realizing, wow, there's this huge need. And I'd always kind of married, let's say, wellness with personal finance. And so, you can kind of call it financial wellness, if you will. And so I started a blog called The Physician Philosopher in 2017, literally pretty much right after my fellowship ended. And just as a way to kind of educate people and see where it was going. But it always kind of had the intention of being a business in the background. And so those first couple of years, it was just a blog. I'd post 3 blog posts a week for a couple of years and started to gain a little bit of traction. Although to be, completely transparent, made like next to no money for those first like 18 months. And so, which is, I want to say, the typical journey of the entrepreneur, right? You put money in, put $5,000 in, from a medical malpractice case that I had done and started the business. I've never, had to put more money in after that. But yeah, I basically practiced medicine for 50, 55 hours a week and then worked on my blog for another couple, well, by couple, I mean like 20. So I was working pretty hard at the time. The hustle culture is real. And it ended up blooming into a lot of other things, books and podcasts, coaching, courses. Eventually, took my journey into venture capitalism, which, I did for 11 months, was super exciting, learned a ton. And so in a lot of ways, really kind of earned a real life MBA, but, predominantly through constantly pivoting over the last 6 years.
Do you mind if we unpack some of that? I mean, again, that's a huge journey, and just you did an awesome job in about 3 minutes telling us your whole journey. There are 2 things that I thought was pretty interesting. You talked about coaching, number one, and the next thing you know, you talked about venture capital. So I'm going to talk about those 2 things real quick, if you don't mind. Let's talk a little bit about coaching. Like, what does that mean for a lot of people? For some people, they may not have any idea and concept like what coaching is for physicians. And how did you get into that? Why did you get into it? And let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, coaching was huge for me. I really, a couple of years into my career, was extremely burned out. I'd done the academic medicine thing in terms of doing research and teaching. I was a good clinician. My academic career just kind of took a giant branch in the road after a few doors got closed. And so I didn't really know how to deal with it. And the way I explain coaching, it's just like anything else, right? Like, you hear about coaches in sports. Like, there's a reason why, like, you don't just go watch a bunch of YouTube channels on like how to swing a golf club, right? Like, you go and get a lesson and like someone shows you a video and walks you through what's going on and what could be different. And that outside objective third-party perspective is immensely helpful, and I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, kind of slog their way along, and then they end up getting coaching, and all of a sudden, it's like fuel on the fire. It just accelerates and has them take off. And the reason why is because we all need that external perspective. It's the same reason why if you're married, committed relationship, or have kids, and you tell your partner or your kids something over and over and over, and it doesn't click. And then, Peter, you come along, tell my kids the same exact thing. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get this. You're like, I've been trying to tell you. Like, having that outside perspective is really helpful. And so really what it is diving into like, hey, where are you at? What are your roadblocks? What's preventing you from getting there? Oftentimes it's a mindset shift. The way that you're kind of viewing things is leading to the result that you have. And so are there examples out there, guides, mentors, coaches that have walked the road that you've gone, or that you want to go, I should say, that can help you, figure out that process faster, right? Like, all of us can do what you and I did early on, right? Like, kind of figure things out as we go. But then we eventually run into people and we're like, hey, you're kind of doing and have done what I want to do. And it turns out that you can like really use that as a catalyst that will get you to your goal so much faster, because they've already learned all the hard knocks. Like, you don't have to do that on your own. Like, you don't have to go through the school of hard knocks to get to where you want to go. And so in a lot of ways, a coach helps speed up that process, which in my opinion was a massive return on investment. I mean, my business really grew after, I got coaching, and, my burnout was helped significantly through coaching. And so it's been a huge help for me, and, highly recommend it to other people as well.
I mean, you not only were coached, but then you eventually turned that and you became a coach for others. Is that right?
Yeah, it was, and at the time, and actually still kind of borne out in the literature, that most people that get coached are in the medical space are women. And so there weren't really many male coaches in the space at the time. I was one of the first that, had training from, Life Coach School, which is where I got my training from. And so, yeah, I saw an opportunity to help other people and became a coach myself because it had been so helpful for me. And I'd always really enjoyed, mentor kind of advisory role opportunities in my life. And so coaching in a lot of ways let me do that, helping predominantly people through career decisions. They're thinking about, changing from job A to job B. They're thinking about leaving medicine. They're considering a non-clinical career of some kind, and helping them work through that decision process without regret, right? Without, really kind of stepping into something without figuring out what the problem was. Because most people, right, they try to put the treatment in place before they've made the diagnosis. Why aren't you happy? Why are you considering a pivot? And if you can't figure that out first, you're just going to kind of shotgun approach things. And honestly, most of the time people end up being just as burned out or unhappy in that next pivot because they didn't really spend the time making the diagnosis first. It's just like medicine. And so I saw that in my life and became a coach, and, have really enjoyed helping people through that process of figuring out their career shifts as well.
I mean, it's such a cool story of how, you turn from, having some issues yourself, finding a coach, now helping and serving others. And somehow through all of that, you ended up helping to found and create a venture-backed company. Now, can you tell us a little bit about how you became a CMO of a company like that? How does that transition even happen? Because I know there's so many people out there that are hearing this and are like, it'd be really cool to take that medical knowledge or do what they have, learned and built up that point, and then be in that world, because it sounds exciting, especially if you guys watch Shark Tank or any of these kind of things. How did you make that happen?
Yeah, it really kind of is like a real life Shark Tank. So I mentioned Leisha Taylor earlier. So Leisha introduced me to a venture capital company, and that company had started in incubation, right? So there's kind of a couple different ways that venture capitalism works, right? So Peter, you and I could come up with a business idea. Let me know if you have one. And we would then go and pitch a VC firm and say, hey, we want some money to really kind of get this thing off the ground and kind of prove the concept. And you and I would own a significant amount of equity in that company because when we started it, you and I both own 100%. And so as investors invest, naturally, they're going to invest for a part of that company and with the hopes that it's going to grow. You invest in 10 companies in the venture capital space and, 8 or 9 of them will fail and 1 or 2 of them will take off and hopefully pay for all the other companies that didn't quite pan out or didn't make quite as much as you were hoping. And then there's another way to kind of get in the space, which is an incubation where the venture capital firm itself starts that firm, starts a company. And then, they're kind of, the original founder, they own a larger percentage of equity. So, kind of some famous examples in the space like Y Combinator. The one that we were working with was AliCorp, amazing VC firm. Really enjoyed working, with them. And so after that, you get some money, you got to prove things out, and it's kind of like a ticking clock, right? It's like playing any sport. Like the clock is going to hit 0 at some point, and so you have to raise money in order to kind of keep the game going, right? So you start with your seed round where you come up with your idea, and then you might go to a Series A, Series B, Series C. And with each of those, the company investing in you is going to take a part of the company when they do that, with the idea that you're going to become more and more successful, that you've kind of shown your trajectory and your path. And so, it's almost like in a lot of ways, you go out and raise money and you meet all these other investors from other venture capital firms. And in many ways, it's a little bit like speed dating, right? We meet for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, have a call, they get to know you, and they're like, yeah, I think you're pretty great. Let's go on a second date. And you kind of keep doing that until, ideally you get someone to invest in the company. And as it does, the company continues to grow. And so really, really interesting experience. And I'll say it's kind of like coaching. Peter, I know that you're in a lot of entrepreneurial communities and, you've got the Leverage and Growth Summit. This is a great example of that, right? Where like when you surround yourself with people that are entrepreneurs, that are like trying to change the world, like they just have these massive ideas and like this infinite potential, it really is kind of contagious. And so for me, I've experienced this at LGS. I've experienced this in some of the other communities that you've built. But the venture capital space, man, like it really was very similar. Lots of people, great ideas. They're all trying to, save the world from something. And so, that's kind of the idea. And I really enjoyed the journey.
I mean, how did you know what to do? You're a doctor, you're an anesthesiologist working in an academic institution. Sure, you've had some, your blog and your podcast and done things like this in the past, but how did you find yourself in that world? I mean, how did it feel for you as a doctor being in that world? Was it intimidating? Was it exciting? And then how did you find success in doing that?
Yeah. So I think a lot of doctors tell themselves like, hey, I'm a physician. I don't have translatable skills. And that really couldn't be further from the truth, right? Like, you're a physician, you've got leadership skills, you've got communication skills, right? You have the ability to problem solve and to think through critical situations, depending on, I guess, your specialty. I'm an anesthesiologist. I know, Peter, you are too, right? We have to be cool, calm, and collected in tough situations, right? When it hits the fan, everyone's turning to you and like, hey, what do we do? Right. And you can't be losing your mind. And so, there's skill sets in each specialty and some generalized skill sets among physicians that really kind of lend to this, right? So doctors all the time in VC space, they have advisory boards and they want opinions from doctors, on maybe their medical background, their, particular specialty. In my case, it had to do with personal finance for physicians. And so I brought in 6 years of experience and getting to know all the people in the space and, building those connections and hopefully some know, like, and trust among physicians that I was somebody that, you could trust was going to do the right thing for you. And so because of that, I walked into this, with a very specific skill set, but also all of those generalized skill sets, the problem solving, the leadership, and the communication. It let me go in front of a VC investor and be very confident speaking with them, right? But like anything else, you go back and read my first blog post or listen to my first podcast, they are horrifically bad, right? So, as I used to say on the Physician Philosopher podcast, right? Start before you're ready, right? Just get started. And as you do that, you gain that skill set. Like, it's not like you have to go get an MBA. And in fact, having walked the road I've walked for 6 years, I've actually asked people like, hey, should I go get an MBA? Would that help me? And they're like, honestly, you have more lived life experience than an MBA does coming out of MBA school. So if you don't need the connections, then you shouldn't do it. But as doctors, we constantly tell ourselves, we need more training. We need more, education. And in fact, it just comes through experience. And so you take that skill set, you use it, and then you learn as you go. And, as with anything in life, you either get what you want or you get the lesson that you need. And it's often a lesson. And then you build on that. Right. And so that's what I did walking into the VC space and recognizing that there was going to be a learning curve and I was going to make mistakes and I was going to learn as I did that and get better and better and better because that's the road that I've walked for 6 years now as an entrepreneur.
I mean, that was so well said. I mean, if you could go back though, what's something that you would have done a little bit differently, or maybe something that you learned later on, or some challenges that you had that you're like, okay, if I was going to tell somebody coming through this, maybe I would have done things a little bit like this instead, or thought this instead. Do you have any advice like that for somebody, again, who wants to follow, I don't know, maybe they want to be in, a venture-backed company. Maybe they want to be in that space, or even be a coach, any of this stuff that they want to build.
Yeah, honestly, I think what I've learned the most is, and this is just for me, everyone has a different view on this, but I'm really, really a big fan at this point of simplicity. I think that when you start, you often make things very complicated. And so people will give you all sorts of opinions. They're like, hey, you need to go hire a bunch of VAs. You need to get a social media and marketing team. You need to do all these things. And really, at the end of the day, every business is just solving a problem, right? You're taking somebody from point A to point B, and the solution to get from point A to point B is your business, right? And so the simpler that can be and the cleaner that definition is in terms of, hey, I'm a weight loss coach and I'll help you lose 15 pounds in 15 weeks, right? Like, that's very clean. For me, when I started out, I was like, hey, I write about personal finance and help people, combat burnout. Like, the success story on the other side of that isn't exactly very clear. People just kind of know, oh, I'm going to go from generally unhappy to happy. The cleaner you can be about the problem that you're solving, and the simpler it is to explain to somebody on an elevator ride, for example, got the classic elevator pitch, right? The more successful you're going to be, because then you can ask questions, right? Is this going to help me solve that specific problem? And if the answer is no, you just don't do it. But if the answer is yes, then yeah, maybe you do need the VA. Maybe you do need the social media team. Maybe you don't. And so for me, I think that I branched out into a lot of different things, as you just heard, right? Blogs, podcasts, YouTube stuff, books. And that can all be multi-purposed to some extent. But then I also did courses and coaching and, a whole slew of other stuff. And it can get really complicated fast. The problem with that for me was that became extremely stressful. And the answer to that was, it turns out, simplicity, right? So, when I realized that later, like, I can just be good at something because, and I'll say second piece, people make a big mistake. Like, people love talking numbers in this space, right? So let's talk numbers. I took $5,000, turned that into a $600,000 annual revenue business, but that business was only earning about $150,000, maybe $200,000 in profit. So people love talking about revenue. They're like, hey, I built $1 million business. I know $1 million business owners that don't make profit, right? They can't pay themselves. And so it's like, great, that's fantastic, but how much money do you actually get to keep, right? That's the number you care about. That's what allowed me to get to 2 days a week in anesthesia. And so if you're going to talk numbers, talk profit, and honestly, you can have a simpler business that makes $250,000 and you get to keep 200 of it, right? Or you can have a $600,000 business where there's 400 and however many $1,000 of overhead expenses and actually bring home less money working harder. And so I would say make things simple and focus on the profit and focus on what your goals are and serving other people. And obviously serving other people should come first. The profit's a byproduct of doing the right thing for people.
I mean, it's so great and so wise. I think if people could just follow that, it would change their trajectory when it comes to business, the way they think about it. I mean, you were able to get into this VC-backed business, and I know a lot of people talk about that. You became a CMO. Like, how does even somebody who wants to do that, like, how do you even, like, practically, like, what are some of the first steps to get into that space to do that kind of thing?
You know, it's interesting. I think probably the way that I did it is not, you know, a way that I can be like, hey, you can follow my footsteps, right? Like I created a business for 6 years, happened to build a name in the space, and then an opportunity got put in front of me that, you know, I then pursued. I think probably the way that you can get into that space that's a little more stepwise, that might be a way to get your foot in the door, is through advisory roles. And so you can actually look these things up, right? Follow people on LinkedIn that live in the VC space, particularly in medical communities that maybe you're interested in. Maybe they work in AI for medical stuff. Maybe they work in, you know, pharma or, you know, biotech, or maybe they're in a fintech company for physicians, and you can reach out, right? And say, hey, you know, I'd love to be an advisory, you know, for your company. How can I get involved? Right. Maybe it is just, you know, helping out to some extent, you know, but that advisory position, I think can be extremely helpful. And you'd be surprised. A lot of doctors, you know, they just want your perspective. And they will give you, you know, usually a small amount, but some equity in the company to help be involved with the process. You might go to, you know, monthly or quarterly meetings, and you might have some conversations with the people that are the founders that are running the company. And that may eventually, you know, to some extent spark an idea because you understand the process a little bit better. And then, yeah, the other way to get in is create a business, come up with an idea that's solving a specific problem. And I will tell you, in the VC space, it has to be scalable. Right. So I just told you about keeping things simple. If you want to be a VC company and get into the VC space as a founder, your idea has to be worth at least $1 billion. Nobody will even talk to you if they don't see the potential of your business becoming at least $1 billion. And that's with a B, like billion. Right. And so if you're going to have something, it needs to be able to scale. It needs to, you know, have what's called a network effect or a moat around it, so that people can't just come back behind you and build the same thing. And so when you do that, you can then come to a VC firm and say, hey, I've got an idea. And then, yeah, you're going to pitch 50 to 100 people, you know, companies on your idea. So you can go the advisory route. You can go the founder route with an idea that you put in front of a VC firm, and you can reach out cold, or, you know, you make connections in the space, and you know, potentially someone can help you get the foot in the door to you know, get in front of a partner, or, you know, a VP, or you know, whoever at a VC company. I'd say that the advisory role and, you know, coming up with an idea, you know, for a company, Shark Tank style, going in front of a VC firm and saying, hey, you know, we want $100,000 for 10% of the company. They're like, okay, so it's $1 million valuation. You're like, yeah, that's what we think the company's worth right now. They're like, well, you know, we think we want 5%. We only think it's worth 500 grand, you know, or, you know, 20%. And so, yeah, the founder role and the advisor role, I think, are the two ways in for a physician.
I mean, now I have to ask. I mean, you talked about practicing anesthesia 2 days a week, doing all these different things, creating these businesses, you know, again, involved in all these ventures. How do you balance all that? How do you make the time work? Because I think we all have the same amount of time. Seems like you're doing a ton with it while balancing your family life as well. Can you let people a little bit, give them some insight into how you're able to make this happen?
Yeah, it's one of the things I actually love to talk about, right? So I have something called a hell yes policy, which is basically where, you know, I have to find my priorities and say no to anything that doesn't make me say hell yes. And that's a very small list. Not many things make it, you know, and so for me, it became a part of getting clarity. So, you know, I'm a big fan of McKeown. He's an author, you know, Essentialism, Effortless. And in one of his books, he actually talks about, Greg McKeown, he talks about how the word priority was originally the word that meant, you know, the one thing that was above all others, right? We had a single priority because you can only have one thing that's above all others. And at some point in the English language, we decided to make that a plural. So it's priorities, as if we can have 15 things, or, you know, that are the most important things in our life. And at the end of the day, you said it, right? We all get the same 24 hours in the day as everyone else. And so when you look around at people and you're like, wow, I can't believe they're accomplishing X, Y, and Z, they're just choosing to say no to other things to create the time that they need to pursue their passions, right? I say no to a lot of things. I'm an academic physician. I don't do research at this point, right? You are not going to get me to lecture for anybody if I'm not at the hospital that day, right? So like we got to coordinate our schedule where I'm already there, right? Like I'm not lecturing to residents today. Like that's not what I'm doing today. And so because of that, it allowed me to free up time that allowed me to do these other things. And I think that's really important because the other end of the spectrum, and you'll hear this in this space, you might even hear this from speakers in this conference, right? That you need to hustle, right? You got to hustle. You got to hustle. I'll tell you, when you are working 50 hours a week in medicine and hustling another 30 hours a week on your side gig, you're burning the candle at both ends. You will burn out eventually. And so for me, the solution was creating the time with the same 24 hours in the day that everyone else gets. So figure out what makes you say hell yes and say no to everything else and don't feel bad about it, right? I do not feel bad anymore when I say no to people.
I love it. I know that people are going to hear this. They're going to want to connect with you. Jimmy, where's the best place for people to do that?
Yeah, so you can go to moneymeetsmedicine.com. Check out the YouTube channel or go to the podcast, depending on your flavor of content consumption. You can also email me at jimmy@moneymeetsmedicine.com, and happy to answer any questions people have about VC or about anything else, really.
Awesome. As you know, the way we leave people on this is to leave people with a big tip. If you can, at least one tip for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps, not do everything you've done, but kind of similar idea, concept, starting these new ventures. What's one big tip you have for somebody who wants to go ahead and start doing that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest tip that I can give anybody in this space, and it's more of a concept, is to embrace failure, right? Like you are going to get out there, you're going to start, you're going to make mistakes. And if you can embrace the idea that failure isn't an obstacle in the way of success, but failure is actually the way to success, that will allow you to fall on your face, whether it be publicly or otherwise, and then get back up, learn from that experience, and to keep going. Because far too many people, there are people listening to this conference, they've got an idea. They've thought about the podcast, the blog, the coaching, the coursing, the going into, biotech or pharma or VC, whatever it might be, real estate, right? And they just haven't gotten started. The hardest part is getting started. And what prevents you from getting started is the fear that you're going to fail, because you've walked a medical journey where you had to be the cream of the crop and be successful the entire way. This idea of failure in entrepreneurship is so foreign to doctors. And if you can just embrace it, that will be the key to your success. Fail forward.
Once again, awesome talking to you, Jimmy. I know people are going to get a ton of value out of this. Good luck in all your ventures. Always excited to talk to you and see what's new with you. So thanks again, Jimmy. Let's talk again soon.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Take care. Hey everyone, we're now going to talk to Dr. Kate Mangona. She's a good friend. She's somebody I love talking to. I'm sure you're going to love this interview. I'm going to read her bio and go ahead right now. She's a board certified associate professor of pediatric radiology. She's part of a dual physician couple. That's important. We'll find out why. She's a certified life and marriage coach, Gottman leader. Many of you might know the Gottman program. She's a real estate investor, speaker, author, couples retreat host. There's so many ands. And she's also the host of the wildly popular podcast, Medicine, Marriage, and Money. She's got coaching programs. She's got YouTube channels. She helps women, I'm just going ahead and read this, to stop stewing in anger, defensiveness, and resentment so they can create more time for love, vacations, and investing. I'm going to let her talk more about that. There are many people that have really gotten a lot of help from her, especially in the area of marriage and relationships. When she's not reading pediatric imaging studies, we're helping humans argue less and reignite the magic, passion, and intimacy in their relationships. She is most likely dancing and singing with her 3 little girls and love of her life. I hope I did you justice, Kate. I'm excited to talk to you. I hope everyone can welcome you as well. Dr. Kate Mangona, how you doing?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Peter Kim. Thank you so much. It's such an honor for me to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. You're always a ton of energy, and I've watched your business grow over time. It's something that's really been cool to watch. Explain to people a little bit more, like what is your basic program with this medicine, marriage, and money? I don't know if I did it justice. Please let people know what that is.
Yes, definitely. So it all started 3 years ago with an idea that I wanted to collect the relationship jewels, like marriage secrets, gold nuggets from all the power couples I knew, including you and Vicky, and multiple other mutual power couple friends we have, And I wanted to share it with the physician community because I just saw so much. And this was the beginning of COVID, right? So you saw people getting separated, divorced, unhappy, stuck at home. And I was like, and I was kind of one of those people. And so I was like, I got to collect these gold nuggets and share them, learn them, practice them on my own, and then share them with the world. So it all started with that idea, my podcast, and then it kind of grew to a lot of one-on-one coaching, group coaching. Then I became a Gottman leader and taught some of the Gottman material. And now I'm hosting couples retreats. And so I'm super excited for 2024. My book is going to come out and still do one-on-one client coaching. And the main focus will be my couples retreats.
I mean, it's crazy. You are a physician and you're a busy physician. Again, you're part of a dual physician couple. Was any of this ever part of the plan? When you were finishing residency, your fellowship, all of this stuff, your high-performing physician, raising your family, was doing something like this even part of the picture? Or even
Absolutely
like a dream?
not. Yeah. Absolutely not. No, I was going to be an pediatric interventional radiologist, and then I got married and then I was like, oh gosh, I think I like diagnostic more. And then it was going to be, focus on career and family. And then I just wanted more.
I mean, that's crazy. So then how did that, I mean, like I said, you talked about it about 3 years ago, you started thinking about this, but how do you even get up and say, hey, I'm going to learn this stuff, but how do you even get that over that initial hump to think I'm going to share this with other people? I mean, was there some hesitation for you there, some fear behind that, or you just get started?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of fear. And, initially, like I said, I did it for myself. So when COVID happened, that I realized there was just, there's a lot of tension in the world. And even the smallest view differences between me and Victor became issues. So, and you were already my friend. I was already in this network of physicians who received coaching and coached. So I was like, let me just try this. Even though I wasn't an entrepreneur coach yet, we were real estate investors. Victor and I have always been real estate investors since the very beginning, since we got married 10 years ago. But then I was like, okay, I decided I was going to be open to be receiving coaching. That first coaching session in May changed my whole life. And I realized I was painting the shittiest story for myself and didn't even realize it. And then from that, I became kind of addicted to coaching. I would say then I joined 2 other programs, or I joined 1 other program. I wanted to join a third, and Victor's like, no, Kate, you can't do all the coaching programs. So I said, okay, Victor, I'm going to sign you up for one of them then. And then it just changed our lives. And he's always had a huge growth and contribution mindset, something that I never really thought about or embraced. And something I always recognized when I first met him actually scared me away from him when we were first dating. And then, so he was on board with this already. And then from that, my first coaching experience, and then a couple months later, and then the realization I just needed to share it, because I was like, once you get all these tools, as an academic radiologist, I'm constantly sharing with my residents, with my fellows. It's like, it's got to be more useful if you share it with people.
So what did you decide was going to be your first way or platform to share this kind of information with people?
My podcast. That was the first thing. I decided I was going to have to launch a podcast. And so I reached out to numerous people. Of course, I had no idea what I was doing. So I just reached out to the first couple people I could think of that had podcasts and successful podcasts, got on the phone with them, right? And just talked about their life, my life, what do they recommend? And I just started. Victor was very supportive. So I was very fortunate in that way. He happened to have microphones and roadcasters, just randomly, or not so randomly, he had them. And so he was so excited to help me set up, get started. And then just really the main thing was for me was talking to a ton of other people who were very supportive. And your wife was actually one of the first 2 people who I reached out to. I said, Vicki, I have got to interview you. And when she said yes, and then one other person said yes, I was like, the dopamine, everything lit up my brain. I was like, okay. And then I reached out to 10 more people. I got those episodes. I got those 10 episodes in my queue. And then I published. And then I just kept going. And then people were like, I want to be on your podcast. I want to be on your podcast. I want to share my story. And every single person who's been on my podcast has had a different perspective on relationships. Multiple people have actually been divorced. And I didn't even know this until they came on my podcast. They would tell it like at the very end or in the middle of the interview. And they had the most wisdom. I will tell you, when you're doing this the second time, you have so much wisdom and everything. Mixed families. I've had people from mostly physicians, but some physician spouses come on. And I have learned so much in 3 years just from listening to all these different positive perspectives and being able to turn that around and figure out how to teach other people or like wrap them up in little like presents with bows to put out little snippets into the world. It's really helped. You can ask Victor.
I mean, you've got to have learned some themes throughout this. I think people that are hearing this or seeing this, they're going to be dying for some big tips, because everyone who's, whether you're in a committed relationship or not, everyone deals with relationships and it can be challenging for everyone. What are some of the common themes that you end up talking about with these people and throughout your retreats and things like that you've learned that we can share with people today?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the top two are physicians want to be right. Everybody wants to be right? Like, it's like, oh, well, they don't understand. Like, they don't understand, this is the right way, or I didn't, this is the way you're supposed to parent, right? I read it in 5 billion different books and listened to it in podcasts, or this is the way you're supposed to, organize the refrigerator, like silly things like that. People think they have their own way of doing things and want their spouse to jump on board or to understand them and to see them before they even try to understand their spouse, right? So it's that ego gets in the way. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that we like to, we see so many movies, right? So many like romance movies, dramas, and there's always the victim. And we like to pretend like we are the victim. It's like, woe is me. And we put ourselves in there and we put our spouse in like this villain role when we forget that we're the team. I see this all the time. It's like, because all the initial in love, lust, in love, honeymoon type hormones, they wane over time. And we don't realize that it's work. And work is in not like active, okay, run around the housework, but like emotional, okay, saying I love you seems so small, right? Asking for forgiveness, even when you don't even know what you might have did, but like genuinely, right? And then thank you, like gratitude for the smallest things. Like a lot of people say, well, of course he should pick up the kids on Monday. I pick them up every other single day. Or why wouldn't he, why wouldn't he or she, be able to do the laundry once out of 100 times, little things like that. Instead of saying, oh, thank you. Right? Thank you for doing that load.
I mean, it's such important stuff, because obviously nobody teaches us how to do this, right? I mean,
No.
It's not something that, just like when we talk about finances, and we talk about finances a lot, that's not something necessarily that we're taught growing up or in medical school or whatever it is. So I can understand how it can be super important for physicians in particular, everyone out there, to have somebody, to have a group, to learn from people. Now, did you ever expect that this would become a business? Even when you started the podcast, you started talking to people. Was that the plan as well, to become this, known expert and have these retreats and things like that?
Oh, retreats. I never even thought about retreats. I mean, retreats, it wasn't even something that I had ever been on. I don't even know if I had ever been on a physician retreat 4 years ago. It was usually just all medical conferences. So I never even thought about that. The coaching thing came into my mind because I was starting to get into that world. And people who I started my podcast for was like, okay, Kate, this is either going to be a very expensive hobby of yours or a hobby that costs money, or you could turn it into something. And so I just started thinking about that, and it wasn't a solid, I think it was like slowly over time. And then I was just like, I started doing it just for free for like my friends, people who wanted to be in my orbit, and realized that it was like I felt so much lighter, so much happier, so much joy when I saw the transformation in other people's lives. And especially like when you talk to a physician who is so hardened, and not their fault, right? Just from being in medicine for 10 or 20 years, and so just angry and resentful, and watching them go and transform into like, oh, I want to be in touch with my feminine side a little bit more. Like, let's talk about that. And all these little tips on how to get there. It just fills me up with joy. And so I just knew I had to keep continuing to do that.
It's so cool because we all know you're busy. I mean, you're a practicing physician. You have a practicing physician husband as well. I mean, you have several children. I mean, it's obvious you're very busy. So why even pursue something like this? Why even stack this onto your plate amongst the thousands of other things you have to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And believe me, I ask myself that question sometimes. I'm like, why am I even doing this when I get frustrated? Because we all get frustrated. And it's not like a journey that's all up here. I'm not just always living in the clouds, because I tend to live in the clouds a lot. I know it's helpful for my marriage. I know it's helpful for my kids because they see me doing this. They see the joy it brings me. They see how it helps me and Victor and all my friends, like my friends, my clients I coach. Like, it's like, how can I not do this? Even when there's rough spots, like yesterday, randomly, I was at work reading x-rays, and I just texted my friend. I was just, hey, thinking about you. And she responded with, Kate, I am shaking right now. She's like, Kate, I'm shaking and crying. How did you know? And I was like, what do you mean, how did I know? She's like, I almost broke up with so-and-so last night. And so immediately we got on a call. Like, I walked to go get my lunch and come back, and completely transformed her mindset in like 15 minutes. And those little moments, just those are why I keep doing it.
So where do you see this going from here? Like, in terms of the business, like, what's next? You did mention retreats. I'm just curious, like, what else is in that whole sphere? And do you see yourself ever truly backing off medicine to pursue this as well? Even more.
Peter, I don't have those answers. My focus for 2024 is my couples retreats. So I've decided to focus less, because last year I did a few different couples programs and one-on-one clients. This year I will take a select few one-on-one clients, but mostly my focus is on couples retreats, because like you said, I have 3 little girls who all need attention. Because I am a marriage coach, I know the importance of keeping my marriage number one, even above my academic career. And I am 0.7 in my pediatric radiology job. I've always thought about going back to full-time, but it would have to be like a special admin type situation or night situation. But I feel like the beauty of this, Peter, is that I don't have to decide right now. Like, at this point, I'm going to work because I love it. At this point, I go to pursue pediatric radiology because that's what I love to do. It brings me fulfillment, and I only have to do it 3.5 days a week. Would I love to cut back to less? I would love to work like a couple days a month. There are 100 pediatric radiology job positions open right now. So I do feel somewhat needed, and I do love that. But I don't have like my whole life planned out, and I'm very flexible like that. So real estate's good. Radiology is good. And right now, where my position is with my retreats and my one-on-one clients is exactly where it needs to be.
I mean, what do you think the potential is for other doctors who, again, it doesn't have to be this specific topic or field, but maybe that's something that they're passionate about. They're already busy. They have busy lives. What's the potential for them to create something and serve other people like in the way you serve?
So I would say if you don't have a hobby or if you don't have a side gig or something you're pursuing to balance, right, the demands of your careers and the stresses family life may bring, think about something that you could do. And this could be anything. But for me, this is kind of one of those things. Besides dancing and singing, this brings me joy. And money doesn't motivate everyone. And I know a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't need another side gig. I don't need to focus on another thing. Like I'm set, right? I make enough money as a physician. And, well, people are all over the board with that. For me, I do this is because it fills my cup. It brings me joy. And I see how many people I impact along the way. But I've heard different things. So I've had different coaches who want me to come up with like a specific money goal for the year or the next year. I have found that doesn't motivate me. You know what does motivate me? Do I want to be divorced in 5 years or 10 years or not? I don't. So for right now, I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to keep helping other physicians and professionals along the same path.
I think that there are going to be a lot of people that are hearing this, and I think they're also going to have some element of what you initially had, where it was kind of like, I'm not sure if I can do this or not, right? They're not sure if they can actually, they've been doing one thing for their entire life. They're advanced in your career like yours. But what do you say to somebody like that when they're thinking about, oh, can I build something like that? Can I create something like that? Can I do something? She's done it. Is it possible for somebody like that to do that in addition to everything that they're doing?
Okay, so that's the wrong question, Peter. It's not, can I do that, right? It's, do I want to do it? Well, do you want to do it or not? And if you do, and sometimes the only way to really know is to start, right? And then you decide, okay. And in order to start, you have to have a strong reason why you're actually going to start, right? So if you don't want to do it, then you're not going to be successful. But if you want to do it because you have a strong reason, like mine, to stay married, to help spread, to learn, really know, so I can teach others these marriage couples tips, gold nuggets, then you just keep going and you find a way and you figure out the how, right? And the other question is who, right? Who, not how. So who can I reach out to? Like, right, because we're not inventing the wheel here. We know other people, like I just started very with like an idea, a podcast art. Okay, podcast start with podcast art. Who's done it? Who can help me through this? So not can I? Of course you can. Do you want to? What's your why? And who do I know who's done it before?
I mean, I know some people are going to hear this. Actually, a lot of people are going to hear this. They're going to feel inspired. They're going to want to find out more about the work that you're doing, find out more about you. Where's a great place for people to do that?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Kate Mangona. And I have a website, medicinemarriageandmoney.com. And also that's my podcast, Medicine, Marriage, and Money. So podcast, YouTube channel, and website, all the same, Medicine, Marriage, and Money. I am planning for a rebrand this year. I don't know when. And you can find more about, I really am more active on Facebook and Instagram. So go find me there. I love to chat. You can, and you can always chat with me anytime.
Well, everyone should definitely check that out. Kate, as you know, before we let people go, we want to leave people with one big tip for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps. Maybe not do exactly what you're doing, but something where they can pursue their passions, find joy, and help other people. So what's the tip you have for them?
The biggest tip is to be okay with being scared, right? Like it's okay to be scared, anxious, feel like you're going to vomit, throw up. The fear of like, what is everybody else going to think? What is my boss going to think? Even like my spouse, what is my lover going to think? Like that is normal. So you have to kind of learn how to focus on the other voices in your head that are saying, do it. And if you don't have those voices, then come hang out with Peter because there are a lot of those voices and he will like give them to you. So do it anyway.
I love it. Kate, it's always great talking to you. You're doing amazing work and helping so many physicians, so many lives out there you're impacting. And I'd say you're not just impacting lives, you're impacting generations. That's what I always like to say. You're doing amazing things. So congratulations on all your success. I know people are going to love this interview, and let's talk again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
My name's Ryan Stedman. I'm an outpatient pediatrician and host of the Wellbeing in Medicine podcast. When I first came to LGS, I was like, what's all this entrepreneurship stuff for doctors? And then I saw so many amazing physicians doing amazing things. I was inspired. I wanted to share what I was passionate about. And then the next year, I joined the Leverage and Growth Accelerator. And it really helped me see how I can take my growth, my business, my passion, my desire to help other physicians to the next level. I would encourage you to check out LGA to get that community, that accountability, those resources, and that encouragement just to keep moving on what that is you have to share with the world.
Hey everyone, this is a person I've been looking forward to talking to for a long time. She's well known to many of you out there, but she's well known to us in our community, in the Leverage and Growth community. This is Dr. Ann Sung. I'm going to go ahead and introduce her right now, read her bio. She's a NASA flight surgeon. We're going to talk all about that. She's a critical care emergency medicine physician, a peak performance productivity coach at a company called Productivity MD, which she founded. She's a real estate investor, a podcast host, of the show, again, also named Productivity MD. And she's also a mother of a 19-month-old. She talks about medical precision, and she's got all of this aspects of entrepreneurial success that she talks about. She guides top physician entrepreneurs to unlock over 10 hours a week, master their mindset, scale their businesses, and achieve unparalleled freedom and leadership excellence. We're going to talk about all of these things. I know you're going to be excited to hear about these things. I'd love to introduce her to you right now. She's well known to our community. She's been part of the Leverage and Growth Accelerator community, and she's just an amazing person. Ann, how you doing?
Doing awesome, Peter. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. You've been part of our community for a while. You built these amazing things, and I just felt it was time that we shared your story today. Do you mind starting off by sharing really quickly, what is Productivity MD?
Productivity MD essentially is a company I founded. We unlock the peak performance and also productivity in the physician entrepreneur so they can actually pursue their entrepreneurial dreams, but not sacrifice the time with their family or their loved ones at the same time.
I think a lot of people would resonate with that. We're going to dive into all of those things because obviously that's extremely important. We have a big community here that are physician entrepreneurs, so I'm sure they're excited to hear more about what you do and the strategies behind all of this stuff. But let me ask you, I mean, we already heard in your bio, you're a NASA physician, a NASA scientist, you do Productivity MD, you're a practicing physician. Was this all part of the plan as you were growing up? Like, we looking at this and saying, I'm going to do all of these different things when I become a doctor and do all this stuff. Like, how was that for you?
Uh, I mean, especially the later part was definitely not what I planned. But when I was young, I think I was interested in space already when I was 5 years old, just reading encyclopedias of the planet. And then later on, when as you talk about as you 10x, throughout your life, 10x versus 2x. I don't know if you read the book, but
Yeah.
every time I became a physician, or graduated college at 10x. Graduated med school, I became 10x. And then 14 years later, I became a NASA flight surgeon after I set the goal at 10x. And now got the podcast, founded the Productivity MD. Every time I've pushed myself, I 10x myself. But back then, I didn't know at that time until I pushed myself. I didn't know I wasn't the person at that time who could imagine achieving it until I went through all those 10x steps and pushed myself further, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think back then, and this is probably where a lot of people are now today, they have a hard time, I guess, envisioning where they're going to be. I mean, back then, why did you think these things maybe weren't even in the realm of possibility for you? Like, what were you actually thinking of doing?
Oh, well, I think stepping back a little bit to the why, the very, very beginning why was probably forced by reality, wanting security, like wanting to become a physician because initially I moved here with my mom when I was 9 years old. In fourth grade, we depend on each other. My parents were divorced since I was a baby. And she worked as a waitress 7 days a week at IHOP, at Chinese restaurants until like pick up 2 a.m. shifts. She would come home. She came home one day and she was robbed. And so since I was young, 9 years old, I just had a sense of like lack of security. Like I cannot fail my mom. I have to become a physician because so that we can kind of get out of this. And then so I had like back then a lot of like shame too because of how poor we were. Initially, I was eating like our dining room would be like, or dining table was like a cardboard box, and then you flip it upside down. That's my dining table. So, and then like when other kids, like parents, would drop me off at the apartment up till high school, and that would be like really ashamed about how it looked, how shabby it was when I was riding their Lexus. So in the very beginning, I could not fail. I had to become a doctor due to that lack of security.
Wow, I mean, that's such an amazing story. I think that a lot of the people that are more successful people, like you hear about that drive that was built into them at an early age, and it's definitely you. And you became that physician, and then you didn't stop there. I mean, you obviously, I'm sure that was obviously, we all been there before. It's not an easy journey to get already to that point. And many of us, that's our main goal. But beyond that, you also you also got involved with space and NASA and flight surgeon. How did that come to be?
Yeah. So going back a little bit about the journey, like you said, like it definitely hasn't been easy in a way because English was my second language. So when I became in seventh grade, I finally graduated ESL, English as Second Language class, into like the regular class with the Caucasian people. I was like, I thought I 10x then already. And then so when I was 19 in college, I was just fascinated by space. I live in Houston, Texas. I go to the Space Center, and I set the goal at that time that no matter what specialty I went into, I already knew I was wanting to go to medical school, that I would work for NASA no matter what. And because of the innovation, because of wanting to belong something bigger than myself, the mission, it's just really cool, you know? And then third year of med school, I was studying at Borders when Borders was still open. And I Googled space doctor, and that's when the University of Texas Galveston fellowship, aerospace medicine fellowship came up. So I did my research, did my fourth year clerkship, did a NASA research clerkship in the fourth year as well. And then after that, went through ER residency and felt like I wanted to learn more upstairs care. So I did my critical care fellowship at Barnes-Jewish Hospital. And then I took a year off because I wanted to live that mini retirement, what Tim Ferriss talks about. Took a year off and traveled for 8 months, then started the aerospace medicine fellowship. So that's like so far the journey here prior to founding Productivity MD, the podcast, etc.
Oh, it's such a fascinating journey. I think we could probably unpack all of those things. I'm just curious, since I have a little bit of I don't have much understanding around what does it mean to be a space like surgeon, like a flight surgeon, a NASA flight surgeon? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that involve in terms of the job, the position? I know you spent some time training in it. Like, just for the layperson out there, what does that involve?
Yeah, you're essentially the doctor for the astronauts. So I can give an example of my current mission right now. I'm currently on an active mission. I was assigned to my astronaut a year and a half ago. When an astronaut's assigned to a mission to the International Space Station, they get a primary surgeon and a deputy surgeon. It's my first mission, so I'm currently the deputy surgeon. So I followed the astronaut throughout their training, any hazardous training. I would travel with them to Russia, sometimes for training, or anywhere else if it's hazardous. I traveled to Russia and then to Kazakhstan in Baikonur for her launch just a few months ago. And then it's been it's a 6-month mission. So we sit on Mission Control Console. If you've seen, the image of NASA Mission Control, so there's a seat for the flight surgeon. So we kind of rotate during the mission, sit in the Mission Console control, and essentially monitor their sleep, diet, their exercise performance, the medications, the science that they're performing, maintaining their health and resilience and peak performance, which is part of the reason why, I'm surrounded by people who wishes to have peak performance and to do everything and down to every minute detail so that they can have peak performance up in the space station. So that's why, like everything like this, I teach, or everything I talk about, I love to learn. I'm surrounded by it, and that's why I love working at NASA as well.
I mean, it's cool because you learn so much on that about peak performance and how to optimize things. And obviously there's very little waste of time, energy when it comes to those type of missions. How did you translate that? And at what point did you decide, I'm going to not only take the knowledge that I've learned, but I'm going to start sharing it with other people through either the podcast that you have right now, or through coaching?
And I think it was a combination of learning what I learned at NASA. It was my self-improvement peak performance journey went back. I think 2014, 2015 was like another 10x moment. I had always wanted to be, I was always efficient, and I was always somebody who wanted to make things better. So since college, since high school, I was always organized, wanting to achieve peak performance for myself. But after I went to UPW at Tony Robbins, reading his book, Tim Ferriss, that's when everything accelerated. And then I started going to more seminars and like speed reading courses, 40 Years of Zen, Mind Valley courses, more Date with Destiny, Life and Wealth. So that is basically like plus all the books, combination of everything leading up to this. And then, so your question is, how did it lead to Productivity MD? Was that the question?
Yeah. I mean, how are you able to take all of these things? I mean, there's one thing, you're doing it for yourself, which is amazing. And I think that's a great journey that everyone should potentially look into for themselves, how to continue to optimize and create the best situation for themselves. But then you took that also and you decided to share it with other people. Like, tell me a little bit about that transformation and what it took to actually take that step.
Oh my gosh. It was 2020. I was in a Mind Valley conference sitting on the floor, and the person right behind me, we started talking and about my interest. Going back a little bit, in 2019 at Life and Wealth was when I decided, after talking to another business coach, was at Life and Wealth in Fiji.
That's another conference, right? Okay.
Yeah, another conference with Tony Robbins. And then, so he said, you got to put your name out there, because at that time I was like, I don't want people to know who I am. I have all this knowledge, but I don't want to put my opinions out there because I'm a physician. So what if somebody sues me, or what if I ruin my reputation? But at that time, I had decided to stop being selfish and then I created social media accounts and started minor posting. Then at 2020, the person behind me suggested that I do a podcast. She's actually a podcast coach. And because I was talking to her about writing a book maybe. And then it took me a whole year to think about it, to like actually take action, to plan and things like that. So finally in 2021, by then I already started working for NASA. I didn't work a lot in the ER ICU. So I didn't have a lot of time to counsel patients or do patient care or share my knowledge with the patients. And this is the way for me to record what I've learned to the masses, because I don't see them much anymore. So August 2021 was when it was first aired, and it's been ongoing ever since. And we just passed the 50th episode. It was called It's Not Rocket Science Show. It has been rebranded to Productivity MD. That took a lot of effort to get over the imposter syndrome, though. It was very brief, like I said it briefly, but before every episode recording, it was always, I had to remind myself, like repeat to myself, it's about them, not about me. It's about them, not about me, to get over that fear.
Yeah, I think we all deal with that. I mean, there are probably a lot of physicians out there who have interests or they want to start a business or they want to do these things, and they probably have this whole imposter syndrome thing. So tell me a little bit about how you were able to get over that. I mean, you mentioned it, you would just do little reminders to yourself, but there's probably more to it where you were able to kind of be able to get over that hump, because I think a lot of people get stuck there.
Yes. I think it's about thinking about, like, before this recording, I thought about what message I wanted to impart. It happened even before this recording, actually. So I had repeated to myself, it's about them, not about me. And the message I really want to get across is that, I want people to know that anything is possible. You have everything within you now. There is possible to start a separate side hustle that can make six figures while working part-time, etc. So it's all about the audience, not about me. But the one thing that really, really was able to allow me to be as authentic as possible without caring what other people would think was my experience at 40 Years of Zen. That was created by Dave Asprey and Vishen Lakhiani. He talked about it in Mind Valley, where essentially it's like a 5-day really deep meditation experience, but in a pod. You're hooked up to like electrodes, and then you get sensory or get auditory feedback on when you're in like alpha, theta state, beta state, etc. But it was through that 5-day experience that I realized that I didn't have to do anything at all to deserve love or worthiness. All I had to do was just be. So just be were the 2 words that came out of that 5-day experience. And I had all these certificates to my right that you can't see. I say that's my wall of self-worth before 40 Years of Zen, but not anymore.
I mean, how have you've obviously had your medical training and you've gone through that whole train, but then you also have this other side where you've done all this training when it comes to productivity. You've done the NASA thing. Sounds like the Mind Valley, all of this mindset type stuff. Like, how has that totally impacted, or how has it impacted your career and your career path and the way you think about medicine, and put all that together now that you're at the point where you're at today?
I think that it allowed me to be less reactive, more focused on self-care, more focused on the wheel of life or the wheel of fulfillment. So what that means is that, in the past, I would skip weddings, skip bachelorette parties, skip birthdays. I would just to work extra like PRN shifts, make money. Everything was about business and money and, work. But now it's more the other way around. Now I'm, go through Productivity MD, through real estate too. I found like an additional financial freedom, additional time freedom through outsourcing and delegating like crazy, having a different mindset, knowing that, I don't have to do everything myself, being able to delegate. Now I actually set my family as non-negotiables, as set my self-care and my own experiences and my own goals as non-negotiables, like own goals like, hey, we want to take an RV trip through all the national parks with our kids. And hey, we want to take them out of school for a year and travel the world. And those are the forefront of our goals. And we will make everything we will work around everything to make that happen. And my current, endeavors, everything is working towards that.
I mean, I know a lot of people watching this they feel already overworked. They're busy physicians. They're helping with family. They're growing their families. They're trying to do all that, and they already feel like they're already squashed for their time. Productivity doesn't even sound like it's kind of part of their vocab anymore, or it's difficult to try to achieve any of that sort of balance. Like, what do you think are some of the best strategies for someone? Again, this is not just in a few short like kind of phrases. What are some of the best strategies that you've noticed have worked for a lot of say overworked physicians?
I think probably the first step is focus. Lots of focus and doing things that's up to your capabilities, and delegating, eliminating things that's you're not trained up to your highest capability. And what I'm talking about is if you can outsource as much as possible. That's like step number 1, like getting people to help out around the household, picking up the kids or meal prepping, and like having a house manager. That's when I was first, after I had my first baby, that's when I had to 10x my own performance, because I was like stagnant And that's when I hire my assistant, my executive assistant. I hire a house manager. Everything is outsourced. So that's really step number one. Stop doing things you don't need to do because it's costing your hourly rate just to do it. Number two is like extreme focus, like extreme focus, and don't deviate after you've set that focus. And what I'm talking about is setting, like I set a life vision with my clients, 5 goals for the year. But out of that 5 goals, we pick one thing, one goal that we're going to laser focus on for the quarter, and all of your steps and everything is scheduled around that one goal, and you just make micro steps on it. A lot of times we feel like, we're so busy that we can't make progress. And if you just take if you just chunk things down and do it every day, 15 minutes a day, something a day. For example, I started an Amazon product when I was in critical care fellowship. I launched the product. And the way I did it was in between, on the shuttle bus from my parking lot to the hospital, 15 minutes, I would be there messaging manufacturers in China. On the way back in the shuttle, I would be responding to emails from the manufacturers. And then a year later, then the product was launched. So it's possible.
Wow. What are some of the biggest, I'd say, maybe in learning all of this stuff, though, what are some of the biggest challenges or mistakes you made, though, in trying to do all of these things or build this business and do all this, that maybe you could save some people some headache for people that are following your footsteps?
I think, oh, yeah. This is
Its
something
own podcast, or it should be its own episode, right?
It's always a work in progress to look at the gain and not the gap. Like,
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. It's a work in progress to look at how much other people have done for you and how much you have come from, comparing yourself to the past instead of where yourself in the future. And then feeling like you're not where you want to be because you're always comparing to the future self, or having a lot of help. You have your assistant, house manager, whoever, your chef. We have a chef downstairs cooking for us right now. And just, coming downstairs, being very grateful about, 3 things that they've done for me that is super grateful, instead of saying, well, this vegetable wasn't cooked the way I wanted, and this is too salty, and why isn't the straw cleaned the way it had to be cleaned for the milk bottle? So just being a perfectionist, having high standards, it's all great. But at the same time, it might keep you from living with joy and happiness at this current moment, and you'll always feel like you're not enough. And Dan Sullivan talked about 10x is better than 2x. In order to go 10x multiple times, for it to be sustainable, you have to live in the gain, not the gap, or else you'll never be happy. And what's the point of achieving all this if you're always internally not feeling like it's enough?
I mean, I think there's so many great important lessons there. I think there are a lot of physicians out there that might see you and hear about these things, and they're like, that's for you. That's not possible in my life. What do you think is the possibility for other physicians to either start businesses like you've done, to create, kind of do a shift in their life, to take control of their time and their productivity? What do you think the potential is for someone who's listening to this?
I think that truly, if you're working full time, anything is possible. And, for example, working full time at NASA, doing a podcast, investing in real estate at the same time, starting Productivity MD, now up to 6 figures of coaching income. But the time, because, if you can up level yourself and your knowledge in the back, the time it takes, it's not that long. Like for my coaching, it's part time. And the way to do it, if there's one thing you can do right now, the way to do it is to have the discipline and step into that identity, the new identity, that you will be indistractable. That is the first thing. And that the night before, you have that one goal that's going to move the needle. If there's like one thing you want to study, like real estate perhaps, or starting a business, or opening up your own practice, or starting coaching, then if you have that one goal, you chunk down 3 things you can achieve the next day in 30 minutes, in an hour. and you remove all distractions, your phone, you take your phones outside, you only work on, you wake up early, you do the things that has to be done, and you make micro progress. That is the one thing you can do. You to have the discipline and step over that line and become the person you need to be in order to get that done. Because a lot of times I see my clients, it's like, it's lack of clarity. There's no focus. We're doing busy work, checking emails instead of the one thing that's going to move the needle. And then at the same time, getting like bombarded by social media, bombarded by email pings, text pings, and then they just like veer off course and they don't actually make progress.
Do you think it's an advantage or a disadvantage to be a physician in this type of situation? Just because we tend to be, at least feel like we're overworked, we're in tough situations, financially, obviously we have a lot of loan, this kind of thing. And when you work with people like that, I know you specifically work with a lot of physicians. How do you handle all of that when people come to you with that?
Yes, a lot of times is, the golden handcuffs where I don't have enough money to hire this person or this person or this person. But one thing is I think of it as a business investment. Like you cannot, it's hard to scale. Like businesses take out loans all the time to hire people, to invest in supplies and raw materials, et cetera, to build out offices. So investing in yourself or investing in somebody to help you, your assistant, that you can focus on, creating your dreams and make your dreams a reality, whatever it is in real estate, then that is super important. And your second question is just you're saying that as a physician, what makes it more difficult for them, like in terms of potentially money, right? Is it
Well, I
money?
mean, again, if they're trying to do all of these things, sometimes I know that a lot of doctors say, and I understand this, they're busy, they're tired, they're overworked. They don't have time to look at these other things. They don't, trying to add something more to their plate. It's not something that people are necessarily looking for. Do you think it's an advantage or disadvantage to be a doctor when they're trying to do all these things?
I think it's an advantage to be a physician in a way where we can learn anything and we will do everything it takes if we set our mind to it, if we prioritize it. So we have that physician mindset already. But at the same time, another thing, like you said, like we are overworked. If you're in the ER and the ICU, we are overworked. And we often like lose track of our health, our vitality, our energy as well. And we often are in a reactive mode in the morning and we don't, and that's really our golden hour of productivity and peak performance. But a lot of times we just wake up and then boom, 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 get the kids ready or no kids, and then just like rush to work. At the end of the day, there's no way you're getting anything productive done. You're stressed out, you're stress eating, and then you go to bed. And then you're also like switching hours and you feel jet lagged all the time. So it is really, really, really hard. So, if you're a physician who, a year ago, early this year, I said no to all night shifts because of that same reason. Like I just had to draw boundaries in what shifts I take because it was affecting my epigenetic age. And then or my cellular age, essentially, which is like was taking a hit. So I said no to night shifts so I have the brain power to focus. So I think it's a disadvantage because we're overworked. But if you draw boundaries in terms of when you want to work, how much you want to work, and become efficient at your work, perhaps, then I think it's possible. And focus on what you eat and what you put into your body.
That's always good advice. I know people are going to hear this. They're going to want to find out more about you, connect with you in some way. Where's a great place for people to do that?
Yeah. I think the best place to go is productivitymd.com. Over there, you can there's a link to the podcast Productivity MD, my social medias, and Sung MD as well. There's a link to the Facebook Mastermind that I post weekly, and also you can book a discovery call just to see, if people from here. I will send you. There will be links where I can send you all the Productivity MD resources that I give my clients, everything that I use, especially the virtual assistant task list, the house manager task list. Those are really popular as well. So I have a bunch of resources that I've refined over 18 years. I'm happy to share this with our audience as well. And they can, if they're interested in talking more, there's a link to book a 30-minute discovery call. Happy to chat.
That's awesome. We always like to leave people with one big tip for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps. Do some of the things that you're doing. Well, what's one piece of advice you have for them?
Yes, and let me go back a little bit too. If let me leave my email directly in case people want to email me directly. That's tsungannmd@gmail.com. And I think the one advice in terms of peak performance, productivity, or really, being able to achieve like anything that you want right now is look right now, like if you haven't done your 5 major goals for the year, because right now it's early in the year, then I would jot it down right now. But out of those 5, one should be yourself, one should be your significant other if you have a significant other, one should be your children if you have kids. A lot of times we lump kids and spouse together as the same goal, which it's totally different, completely different. And then you get 2 others to focus on career, or like financial freedom or something like that. Jot those 5 things down for the year and then pick one for the quarter and hyper focus on it. Seek out the resources at Leverage and Growth Summit. Reach out to make that one reach out, find one resource that you need and just take some action on it, on your goals.
Great advice. Just want to congratulate you on all your success. You're an inspiration to me and so many people out there. You're doing amazing work helping and impacting so many physicians and physician lives out there. So thanks so much for all you do. Really appreciate the time. And let's talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. Super grateful to have the time with you guys. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. This is going to be a fun interview. If you're a physician who's thinking about venturing into all sorts of different things, not sure how to do it, want to take a leap, want to expand your mindset, do all of these things, you're in the right place. We're going to have fun with this interview. I'm excited to talk to Dr. Vikram Raya. I'm going to go ahead and read his bio. He's a trained cardiologist, and he was a functional medicine physician as well, too. I'm going to talk all about this. He's also an international speaker, high performance coach, and a real estate expert. He's been active in the space of multifamily. Many of you know that. And he's a founding partner and CEO of Viking Capital Investments. If that's not enough, he's also helps high achievers, doctors, and other professionals all around the world achieve ultimate vitality, financial abundance, and a bulletproof mindset through his coaching. The company's called Limitless MD. There's so many things to talk about. This is going to be a fun interview. Vikram, how are you doing?
Hey, Peter. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, it's always good to talk to you. There's so many parts of your story that I feel like it's hard to do it all in one interview, but I think you're up for the challenge. I think I'm up for the challenge. We're going to go ahead and try. Just before we kind of get into your story a little bit, tell people a little bit more about what you're doing today with Viking Capital and Limitless MD. Just tell us what it is, and then we'll go back into your story about it.
No, I was on a journey for financial freedom, and I wanted to create multiple streams of income. And so I learned about real estate, and that eventually led me to create a multifamily investment company called Viking Capital. And really, our mission is really to help high income professionals and in other physicians and investors invest in good, strong assets across the country. And we believe multifamily is a safe asset, and that's what we've sort of focused on. And it's been an amazing journey. And then, that's like a sort of a passive income business or a business to create passive income. And then my passion business, if I could say that, is really helping unlock greatness in individuals like physicians so they can do what they want and live their mission and achieve the freedoms.
I mean, both sides, I think I resonate with both those things. And it's so cool to see how this has come about now that I've known you for this many years. But let's go back a little bit. You have a background as a cardiologist. When you were in training, when you were in your fellowship and you're building your practice, was there ever any part of you that thought that this many years later, you'd have all of these things?
No, I mean, I really wanted to be a cardiologist. That was my dream. And I had a few members of my family who had heart attacks, and they passed away, unfortunately, and so that really affected me. And so I thought it was very challenging to get into cardiology. In fact, I didn't get in my first time, and I had to reapply. And once I got in, I felt like the clouds parted and the sun was there, and I had all this like, glow about me. And I was like, oh my God, I made it. And then, I was practicing. I mean, I went through my fellowship, and then when I started practicing, I was still super excited. But over the years, the things that a lot of physicians that are listening to this may feel, I didn't have the autonomy that I really wanted. I didn't have the schedule I wanted. I felt like I'd have to make a decision between, seeing my kids and my wife, and then doing all my things for my practice. And then, my salary, and I'll be very honest with my salary, first year in practice was $225,000 in a major metropolis like Washington D.C., and that's challenging to live off of. So it set me up for thinking what else is next, or what else can I do to expand my capabilities.
Okay, so I mean, I think a lot of people can resonate with that. They feel that cardiology or their medical thing is, their specialty, is their goal, and they get there, and then they run into some challenges. What did you do next? I mean, how did that even transition? I know you thought that, hey, there must be another way to do things, or you wanted to add things. What was the very next step that you took?
I guess the very next step is I got curious, right? I just let, like some people say they have resignation and they're like, this is what it is. But I felt like, no, there has to be something else, or there has to be another path, or perhaps I can bolt something onto what I'm doing to give either more income, more fulfillment, more free time, something. And so I just got curious. I started learning, similar to you, Peter. I started reading. I started understanding. So I tried options trading, to be honest with you, Peter, and I got my butt handed to me. I even had a coach, but I just felt it was very complicated. I didn't understand it. And I was like, all right, well, that didn't work. So I took it as lessons. And, one of the things I want to share with our listeners is like, I made a ton of mistakes, but I reframe them as mistakes. I use them as tuition, investments in my own learning, my education. And there's the phrases like mistakes, right, lead to experience leads to wisdom, and wisdom eventually leads to good decisions, right? So I think over time, just through trial and error, I eventually figured out something.
What was that something? What was next for you then? You did options trading and you kept moving on from there. Like, what were some of the things in your world that you were thinking about pursuing?
Yeah, I thought real estate could work, but I didn't know anything about it. And I thought it was very challenging. So I went to a local real estate investment association. So I went to a tribe outside of my physician tribe to learn a new skill. So it was skill acquisition that I thought would be useful in my journey.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, how'd you feel like when you went there? I mean, were you kind of comfortable with it? You know what you're doing?
No. Yeah, it was like learning a different language. Is like learning a different specialty when you're like one specialty. And it was like drinking from a fire hose. But over time, some of the strategies, wholesaling, tried it, didn't work, fix and flips, maybe. And then I started building a small portfolio, piecing things together. My wife gave me a warning. If you ever use our personal name, your W-2, or the fact that, we're married to get a loan for real estate, that's not going to be good for us, our relationship. And so I had to learn to be creative with my financing. And so over time, through some hustle, some luck, I pulled together a small portfolio, and it was nice, and it was good income, but it didn't really want to replace my income or do anything else substantial. So then I was like, what's next? And that's usually a good question for physicians to ask, what's next? Or what's the next step? And in that case, I heard a lecture about multifamily and syndications, and that piqued my interest. And then I went down that rabbit hole, and it led me to having a partnership with my friend Ravi Gupta, and we formed Viking Capital, and it helped me form the syndication company.
Well, tell us a little bit more about how you formed that. Like, what does that mean for some people that aren't even in that space? Like, what does it mean, a syndication company, and how do you put something like that together? And what's the goal and aim of that?
Yeah. I heard the guy speak at a lecture at the real estate investment club that I was frequenting. And he said, you can raise capital. And I know you guys want to buy one unit or 4 units, but imagine buying 100 units. I was like, whoa, 100 units. It just boggled my mind. And then he said the way to do it is as syndication, which initially it seemed like an illegal concept. It seemed like, some mafia bosses would come after me if I didn't pay someone back. But it was really pooling money together. And I thought, okay, And at that point, I didn't let anyone in my cardiology circle or my physician circle know what I was doing, because I felt embarrassed that I was doing entrepreneurship when I should have been focusing on patient care or being a physician. But at that point, I remember one of the things also I started working with as a coach. I had a coach at that time that Trevor McGregor, and we made he helped me make a distinction. Hey, think about your career as an asset instead of a liability. And then I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. And so I actually started sharing with people what I knew, and I found other people were interested in what I wanted to do. And so that's when I pooled investments together and I helped someone else get a deal done. And that gave me so much joy and excitement. And that's when the real estate bug really bit me. And then we started doing it in bigger deals. And eventually we did it under our banner or our name, Viking Capital. And that led to where we are now.
I mean, how are you able to do that with your whole cardiology practice and career? How are you doing and balancing those two?
I don't think I did a good job, to be honest with you. When my kids were younger, I still remember my wife working full time. I was working full time. We didn't have a nanny. We had daycare. If one of the kids got sick, like one of us would go in early and round, one of us would go late and round, and we'd have to just cover that. And then I had this crazy notion that I was learning functional medicine at the time. Though that's as a side note, the reason why I was interested in real estate is I wanted to have income outside of medicine. So when I took a entrepreneurial risk of starting my concierge cash-based practice, that I would not lose my home in the process. I'd have cash to support me. So I was taking these classes to learn functional medicine. I was learning real estate, and I was trying to manage 2 young kids and still stay married. And so I don't think I did it the right way. And that's one of the lessons I want to share with you guys. Mindset mastery starts first, I would say, with schedule mastery. Learn to manage your schedule. And there's so many good books out there that I can recommend. One of the good ones, there are 2 good ones, and they're different angles on the same topic. One is Miracle Morning, which talks about all these beautiful routines you can do. The other one is called the Perfect Week Formula, and it talks about getting your most important deep work done first thing in the morning, right? And don't do the underwater yoga and all that kind of stuff and meditation. So it doesn't matter which book you choose, but that some kind of morning routine, mastering your schedule, mastering your week, starts allowing you to have not balance, but what you talked about at our last retreat at the Limitless event, Peter. You talked about harmony, and I like that word, and I think that's what I was trying to achieve. And I had it took me several years to figure that out.
So when you did start to figure it out, what did it start to look like from a time perspective, and how were you dedicating some to your clinical time to that? And it sounds like you were, thinking about doing this whole functional medicine clinic. Tell us the evolution of all that.
So one of the things I think a physician has to do is get clarity. That's the number one step. I didn't really have clarity the first couple of years when I was practicing, but over probably by the 3rd year, I had a clear picture. I made a declaration. I had no way of figuring out if this was true or not, is the right timetable, but I just declared, hey, by the age of 40, I'm going to stop practicing traditional cardiology, and I'm going to be fully in, my clinic, my real estate, all that stuff. So I had a timeline. Number 2, I knew that I needed to start taking action. So you may not know, if you're a frog and you're jumping on lily pads, you may not know the 10th lily pad, but at least the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th lily pads. And so having those medium and short-term goals allows you to then start planning. And so I planned to start opening my clinic in 2017, and this was in 2015. I started thinking about all this. So in 2 years, I knew I'd want to find a clinic, and so then I'd reverse engineer that goal backward. I also knew that I wanted to have this amount of passive income or active income from real estate to replace my cardiology income, and so I was trying to figure out how to do that. And then what I did was I had to let go of things. You can't keep adding without subtracting. And that was one of the mistakes that I figured out. If you start subtracting off your schedule, so boys trips, that's something I had to let go of. I don't do that. I didn't do that many boys trips that next couple of years. I would get up early. I'd start sacrificing a little bit of sleep. Nowadays, I'm trying to get more sleep and make up for all those years of that. But back then I would get up at 4:30 most mornings, and I'd at least dedicate an hour to my craft that it's not cardiology related. And then I would squeeze time in, and then, and then I had an hour commute either way, Peter. And so what I would use is I would make that traffic university. Either I'd be listening to audiobooks, podcasts were just starting to get popular at that point, not that popular. And then, or I would be talking to perhaps brokers or coaches or mentors or other people and just use that dead time,
I mean, it's cool that you were able to do that. I mean, at some point you said some things you had to give up. When did you start giving up some of your clinical practice? And then of course, how did your team, or how did your partners, or how did you even start to address some of those things?
So I was initially scared to share with them, but eventually, I confided them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing on the side. They were interested, they were excited, but it didn't affect their clinical practice, so they were fine. But over time, I eventually had to tell them, hey, look, this is really my passion and this is really what I want to do. And I'll still support you guys, even if I do something different. And even to this day, first of all, half of them still invest in my real estate deals, which is cool. But on the flip side is any opportunity I can help my former practice grow, I still do. So don't burn bridges, build more bridges, and always, make it where it's a win-win somehow. And that's what I tried to do. And you know how it's Jerry Seinfeld and Michael Jordan, they always left on top. So I tried to never let the quality of my care ever go down. I try to be a very good clinician, a very good cardiologist, despite me doing all these other things on the side. And that also, I earned goodwill from all that.
I mean, you mentioned that, initially you talked about the financial aspect, and you talk about the salary that you made. I'm sure it grew over time, like becoming a partner in the group, or, growing within that. But then at what point did all the other things that you were doing give you that freedom so that you could decide what you wanted to do with your clinical time?
There's a lot of people that I coach now, and they still like to practice, but it wasn't really maybe the cash flow or whatever. It was the confidence to back off and do something different. And, being a physician, as you know, Peter, is our identity. And a lot of us have a very difficult time and we think we have to relinquish that identity to do something else. And what I realized is, you stand for the and, right? You stand for that it's an expansive identity. You can be a physician and entrepreneur and real estate investor and father and things like that. So I fought with that internally, but then once I came to peace with it, that, hey, I'm still going to be a physician. I'm just going to have my own clinic, or I'm still going to be a doctor, but I happen to do real estate. That's when I made the declaration, and I did it in a safe way. A lot of doctors think it's very risky what I did. I just left a phenomenal job to go do these, harebrained schemes, but really it was a calculated, mitigated risk. What I did was, worst case scenario, if my clinic failed and real estate failed, and let's say even this coaching failed, I'd go recertify, get my boards done fully, and I'd go back to being a cardiologist. Similarly, many of you are physicians. At most, you'd have a year lapse because you'd have to get something done, but you can go back to being a physician. So it's truly not that risky when you think about it that way. And number two is I did it in a safe way. They say entrepreneurs are risky. They're really not risky. They know how to manage risk. And so what I did was I managed risk this way: 5 days a week initially, nothing, 0 days in my new clinic. And then I went 4 and 1, 3 and 2. And then at the 3 and 2 mark, we happened to have a big 7-figure exit in one of our real estate deals. And I felt like, all right, I have a year's worth of income set aside. I think I can take the risk. And so I told the group, look, I'm going to take a time off, but if I need to come back, will you have me? And they said yes. So I was like, all right, cool. So that's how I was able to, I think, gracefully exit.
I mean, that's amazing. And on the other side of it, I'm just curious, how did you feel when you were able to do that and look back? At that time, I'm sure that was a point that you were working towards and you're striving towards and all that stuff. How did you feel when you hit that point?
I mean, words can't describe it. I had made that declaration in 2013, and then 2018, when almost 6 years later, I was able. I was 39. I was about to turn 40. And then I was able to let go. I was like, oh my God. And I felt freedom. I felt powerful. I felt energetic, but it lasted briefly because then the you know, I was a member of a very busy cardiology practice, and then the fact to learn to manage your own practice, that's a whole different thing. But I still enjoy the fact that I had autonomy, Peter, and I think that's sometimes that's what we want as physicians. We do want that autonomy.
100%. So cool. I know that people are going to hear this. Again, we've only, I say, scratched the surface of all the cool things you're involved in, all the cool things you're doing even today. But I know some people are going to hear this. They're going to want to connect with you in some way, find out more about what you're doing. Where's a great place for people to do that?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at Vikram Raya. They can find me on my website, vikramraya.com. Happy to help anyone who's interested in anything that we've talked about today.
Awesome. And so before we let you go, I just want you to leave people with one tip or a good piece of advice for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps.
Yes. So let's say I was thinking about this, and I would say, you know what? The number one thing that I found after speaking to about 1,000 doctors all over the country in various forms and shape and fashion, the number one thing I found for physicians to be successful is grit. So I want them to go to Google, the Grit Score, which is by a book by Angela Duckworth, and take that test. And whatever your score is, know that you can improve it by some of the things we've talked about on this seminar. So take the Grit Score, increase your Grit Score, and hit me up or Peter, and let's see how we can help you guys.
Awesome. Congrats on all the amazing things you're doing. It's always so fun to talk to you and hear all the cool things, and I learn something new every time. So thanks for your time, Vikram. Let's talk again soon.
Thanks, Peter. Take care.
Okay, bye. Okay, I think you can see this. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to the grand finale of the Leverage and Growth Summit 2024. I'm so excited that you've been part of it. If you're watching this right now and you can see me live on this beautiful Friday, I'm assuming it's beautiful where you're at, let us know by saying hello or hi in the comments below or on the side, however you're watching this. And if you're watching this at any other time, that's fine. You can still say hello and stay connected to others. Okay, cool. Thank you for saying that. I'm interested. Where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. I've been asking people all week where you're watching this from. We've had people here from New Jersey, Florida, Texas, North Dakota, California, even Costa Rica. It's been really cool. And I'm also interested in hearing here right now in our comments. Let us know how this summit has impacted you. Maybe it's changed your thinking a little bit. Did it give you a little room to dream a little bit? Did it reignite something in you? I love seeing people from all parts of the country just get together. And it's just really great to see this community of amazing doctors and physicians do that, get together and just make amazing things happen. Now, I also always get a little bit sad at this point and nostalgic because I like being around people who have a lot of energy and are motivated to move forward. And I have a question for you. And I'd love to see the responses down again. If you could sum up this summit in one word for you for these last 5 days or however long you've been part of it, and you could sum that up in just one word, what would that word be? I'd love to hear some of those responses. Go ahead and put it down here in the comments. Yeah, what would that one word be for you? And I've been hearing from people all week. You mentioned things like it's been powerful, it's been life-changing, breakthrough, empowering are some of the words that I've seen. For me, I would say the one word, and it seems to always be the word when I do something like this, it's just gratitude. I just feel a ton of gratitude during this time. And I want to thank a lot of people. First of all, number one, the speakers. I have to thank the speakers. Please show some love for the speakers down below. Let us know which of the speakers really impacted you this week. Give it up to them. Mention them by name. If you haven't shown your love for them in their talks, go ahead and do it now. Give them a shout out in the comments. You can also reach out to them and let them know how much their time and that talk meant to you. They really gave up their time to just serve this community with their expertise. And you can find their contact information, and some posts that we've put on the Facebook group. And you can go ahead and LinkedIn or wherever it is and find them. And I want to just take this time to say thank you to the 30 plus speakers. You made the summit possible and you're amazing. Number two, I want to thank the sponsors. We had a ton of great sponsors and partners who helped make this free event possible. I want to thank our sponsors, Eckerd Enterprises, Wandery Capital, Cent Equity Group, and Curbside Real Estate. If you haven't had the opportunity to check them out, you still have the opportunity to do so. You can see it on the post. You're going to see some of the contact information in some of the emails, and you can still go to the sponsor booths. Maybe they're going to be there tonight at the Mixer. So show them some love and figure out how they can help you and your life and help you ultimately achieve your goals. Also, want to thank our team. I know they're out there watching. So if you look at the admin list on the Facebook group, or you received an email, or you met some of them at the Q&As or the Mixers, you know it takes a village to make a summit like this happen. And I couldn't have done it without them. And there's so much happening behind the scenes you wouldn't even know in the background. And if it wasn't for them, this thing would not have gone off as smoothly as it has. So I want to thank them. Please give them some love with some hearts or love or emoji in the comments. I also want to thank the Leverage and Growth Accelerator community, all of our LGA people. I just love how this community jumps in and welcomes everyone into this unique gathering of physicians. And if you're watching, you're part of LGA, thank you for bringing that spirit of generosity, of enthusiasm. You keep the energy going and you make sure things go smoothly, and you just help make this an amazing time. I also want to thank the coaches from our Leverage and Growth Accelerator community. And if you've been part of the coaching sessions at all, you showed up on those, you know how powerful those sessions are. We've had over 20 coaches volunteer and be available to you just this week. And they came and they gave their evenings every single day. And by the way, still today from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time, so that's 7 to 9, you can, on the Eastern Shore, you can take advantage of this free coaching opportunity to help you level up your big idea or business. And they're here to serve you wherever you're at in whatever capacity they can. So thank you, coaches, for being a part of this. I also want to thank my wife, who has been holding down the fort. Thank you, Vicky Chan. She's been holding down the fort for the last 5 days. And she knows I haven't slept very much, so she hasn't slept very much. So she's been taking care of things behind the scenes as well. Thank you so much for supporting me and what we're doing. And I couldn't have done this without you. So give her some love as well. And then ultimately, I want to thank everyone watching this, whether you're watching it live or after. Yes, you, I'm looking at you. And I want to thank you, this community, people who attended this summit, took up your time. You shared your stories. You showed up. You participated. And you invited others to the summit because you thought it might bring value to their lives. I mean, not for anything for you, but for them. And so I want to thank you for that as well. I believe this community is absolutely amazing. And if there's anything I've learned, and I think we've all learned, and if we didn't know it already, physicians are not just amazing doctors. They are incredible people, business people, whatever it is. They're capable of doing everything. And I know I'm a bit biased, but I believe we have the skills, the ambition, the intelligence to do it all. I mean, that's what it took to get you to where you're at now in your career. For you, go ahead and look back. You can figure out you had all those things. We had to channel that into medicine to get where we're at. But if we channel that also into some other things, I have no doubt that we can, that we'll be successful in those areas. And there really is nothing that we can't do. Now, when I think about this conference, and we started back in 2020, and now this is our 5th conference, it all started with one question. What's one way that we can support you? And obviously we were in a different time back in 2020. And when we asked you that question, you told us, we'd love to hear stories of people who are doing some cool things with their medical degrees. You wanted to be inspired, and you wanted a community of like-minded people. So that's what we did. We put all that together, and we brought you those story after story. And we put together a community of people who are striving for the same things. And you heard these speakers. They're doing incredible things, both inside and outside medicine. But the common theme is that they're able to leverage their skills, their experience, all of their resources, their connections, even their medical degrees to create something pretty awesome and amazing, and ultimately give them some more control of their lives. And so I want to thank you, all of you who have been part of this. I see all of your comments and messages, and they've been so encouraging, not just for me, but for all the other members of this community. I've seen people say it's given them a spark. They've been excited. They found their tribe. I've seen people say that it's a push that they needed. For others, they felt validated. Maybe in some ways they felt isolated and alone, but they feel like they found their people here. I mean, some other people who want the same things and have similar ideas. And for some people, they say came at the perfect time. So I don't know where you're at, but hopefully it was good timing for you and you're here for a reason. And I'm already super impressed by some of you who have already let us know what actions you've taken. We've put that challenge post this week about what steps you're taking because of the summit. And so many of you have said you've already connected with this person. You put the wheels in motion to do these things like launch a podcast or start a website or whatever it is. So many of you already joined our LGA membership community. I mean, so much more. You guys are doing so much. And I can't tell you how impressed I am, because we all know that, you know, the knowledge is out there. It's at your fingertips, right? In fact, with Google, the internet, AI, we have all of the knowledge. So that is not the problem. What sets us apart and all the speakers apart, it's that we took the knowledge and we did something with it. And, you know, I love the saying that knowledge isn't power, it's only potential power. And true power is applied knowledge. It's taking action. And, you know, that's how we move forward in life. And over the last 5 days, I've seen the power of action taking place in community. This is what happens when you get awesome people together like you to get together, share stories, share ideas, share inspiration, and support each other without judgment. So what's the potential that we have? I've asked a lot of the speakers that. We just have unlimited potential. It's possible for all of us. And so what's next for you? And I'm wondering, what is going to drive you forward? What's that step, small or big? Like, what's that step that's going to create that momentum to carry you forward? Now, many of you know my story, so I'm not going to go into it in full detail, but I'm an anesthesiologist by background, an OB anesthesiologist. I'm now currently, I'd say, taking a break. I'm retired from medicine. I may go back to it, who knows? But I have that choice. And I hit a point when I became an attending where I just felt like I wasn't in control of my life in terms of my career, my finances, my time. And it was a really scary place to be. But the thing that pulled me out of that was to find other doctors, other like-minded people who are doing different things like building businesses, investing in real estate, creating other streams of income and advice. I saw them doing it and I thought, why can't I? I found those people and they helped pull me out of that rut, helped inspire, move me to a different place, to where I am today, where I do feel like I'm in control of my life and I'm able to spend my time doing the things I'm passionate about, spending time with the people I love. And again, I feel so fortunate and I couldn't be more grateful for those people who were there in my life at that time. And I realized from that experience that if I just surrounded myself with the right people, amazing things would happen. And that tremendous growth happened, not only my business, but my career, my personal life, my income, all of these things changed. And it was that community that made the difference. They held me to a different standard. They held me accountable and it helped me get where I wanted to be. So hopefully that will help you too. Hopefully you made some connections here and it'll help get you where you want to be, whether it's in a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. And I know many of you have talked about your own journeys. And we like to talk about the entrepreneurial journey. And all of you are in different stages. There's so many different stages. Some people are at the beginning. You're at the very early stages. You're just starting to realize, hey, there are people doing different things. Maybe I should think about it. Or you've hit that 7 or 10-year wall or that itch in your career where you've been attending for that long and you're wondering what's next. You're open to something more. Maybe you're exploring and you're trying to figure out where to start. You start talking to different people. You watch these interviews and it sparks something in you. You're just trying to figure out where you're going to go, what direction. Maybe you have an idea that you've been sitting on for a while. Is an old idea resurfaced or an idea you've been stuck with, but you're not sure what to do. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. And I totally get that. They have that idea and it's been in their mind for a while and they don't know what to do next. But maybe you've taken even the next step and you start to build something. You start to build something and you start to grow. And you've taken that idea and you start an LLC or a business or a service or opportunity, and you're trying to figure out how to do it faster and better and more efficiently, or you're trying to figure out how to scale that, right? Because your time, it takes up a lot of time and your energy. So I'd love to hear from you. Where are you on that journey? Are you just starting out? You have an idea, you're stuck, you're building things, you're growing things, you're scaling things. Just love to hear it. Go ahead and put in the comments. Now, I mentioned earlier this week that people always question whether physicians make good entrepreneurs. And I would have to say, absolutely. There's no question we are. If there's anything that's been proved this week by the speakers, it's that we're amazing entrepreneurs. We're great problem solvers. Every day we face life and death situations and make decisive actions. But what happens is that we feel a little disconnected sometimes and discouraged because we're in our own worlds. And we don't always realize the impact that we're making. Maybe we've done it so much. Maybe you feel discouraged because the communities you're part of, they're not in the same place as you. They're not quite as supportive or in the same mindset. And so it makes it harder for you to move forward as a physician entrepreneur or someone who's trying to build and do investments. That's all the same journey. Well, I hope you found your tribe here, and I hope you realize, again, it's essential to surround yourselves with the right people. We need to be around people that will lift us up and help us grow towards our goals. So if you haven't found that type of community, maybe, I don't know, it's time to start looking for that. I used to be in the same place, and especially with this summit. So members of this community got together, and I did, and we put our minds together. We decided to create our own community, a community where we're going to be able to ride on this journey together, support each other without judgment, place to connect, create ideas, right? And take ideas further. We want to make sure that we are accountable to each other, share tools and resources. We wanted coaching. We want to be able to experience work-life harmony and get rid of some of those limiting beliefs holding us back. That's how we created the Leverage and Growth Accelerator Community, LGA. You might have heard about it all this week. I want to invite everyone here who feels like they might benefit from this to just join and be part of that community. It's that community of like-minded physicians who are committed to growth. I like to say exploration, making positive changes in our lives so we can take back control, so you can do the things that you love with the people you love. And we know this community isn't for everyone, but if you feel like it might be something that you benefit from, we encourage you to join. Just to make it easy, we put in this place where it's a 30-day free look. It's a free trial. So you can go ahead and take a look at it and see if it's something good for you. But maybe for you, all you need is a summit. And if that's it, and we see you every year at the summit and you share your progress and journey with us, that is amazing. I mean, maybe it's something that you're going to look at year after year and you're going to say, plant your flag. And this is where I was. And these are the milestones. So, but if you're interested in joining, look for the link, lgacommunity.com. Go ahead and check it out. We have people at all stages of the journey there. People have just started to grown and launch businesses, and we bring in all the resources and accountability partners to help each other. We share our successes and failures. We go on this journey together. So hopefully you can be part of it. Just so you know, the goal of this summit isn't to get people to leave medicine. I've been asked about that. It's really to help physicians practice medicine on their own terms. If they want the freedom to choose how they want to spend their time, that's what we want for people. That's what we want for you. And I think by creating other streams of income, creating other passions, that lets us do that. Because as physicians, that's not all we are. I mean, it's important what we do at our core and our identity, but that's not all we are. We want to have more fulfilled lives. We need more identities. We're parents, we're spouses, we're creators, we're athletes, we're caregivers, we're entrepreneurs. The point is, you're more than just a doctor. I hope you realize that from this summit. And so a couple of last things. Don't forget, we have meetups happening all over the nation this weekend. So if you want to get together with this community of physicians face to face, this is your chance. We've had hundreds of people RSVP. If you have not done that, we're going to open it again for the next hour. Go ahead and sign up and meet other amazing physicians in your city. I can't wait to hear about your stories. And if you like this type of event, you understand it's important to spend time in an immersed community like this. We hold a huge event every fall called PIMD-Con, which is the Physician Real Estate and Entrepreneurship Conference. It's just that. We talk about real estate investing and we talk about entrepreneurship. We get hundreds of physicians together talking about this stuff, and it's so much fun. The energy is amazing. This year it's going to take place in Dallas on September 26th through 28th. You can still get your ticket. We still have a few spots. So take advantage of early bird pricing. I'm excited to see you there in person. I would love for you to do that. Go to PIMDcon.com and get a ticket, and we'd love to see you there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this week. I want to honor all of you who took the time to be part of this community, to share your stories, to comment, to show up at the mixers and just cheer each other on. This is what happens when we collaborate and support each other and not try to tear each other down. This is a special community and tribe here, and we love for you to continue to take that energy back with you in your daily lives. So bring it back to your communities. Continue to make that difference. It's been an absolute honor to spend time with you this week. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for letting us serve you and be part of this. Let us know how we can continue to support you. And I want to wish you all the best. And I want to leave you with this. Just go make it happen. All right, let's do this again soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.